On the way to the college entrance exam venue, they ran into special police officers conducting a random spot check. The police asked the school bus driver matter-of-factly, "What's in the vehicle? Where are you headed?" wanting to show off in front of the girl he had a crush on. The class monitor Guze pretended to be mysterious and pointed under the seats. "Officer, to be honest, we're not going there to take the exam. The chassis of this bus is filled with the white powder our boss is transporting overseas. Everyone on this bus is a drug trafficker going along for the deal. In my previous life," before he could even finish speaking, I immediately rushed forward and clamped my hand tightly over his mouth. I pulled out the whole class's admission tickets and desperately explained to the police, and only then were we not detained for a search. The whole class squeezed into the exam room at the last possible minute. Right before time ran out, only Guze was taken away by the police for disrupting law enforcement. To get back at me, during the graduation trip, he tricked me onto the cruise ship deck, then threw me into the deep sea to feed the sharks, and not a single classmate tried to stop him. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the school bus. Guze was looking out the window at the SWAT team with a mocking grin, already opening his mouth to show off that self-important wit of his. Quietly, I moved to the back row and pulled the zipper on my backpack tight. "Fine, you want to play drug lord, do you? Let the whole class go to the drug control unit to take the college entrance exam 1. Guze, you're so annoying." I'm dying laughing. Shinchusha really covered her mouth and laughed, her eyes curving into crescents. She's the school's beauty queen and the goddess Guze has been chasing for 3 years without success. He always thinks he's witty and charming, and feels he must stand out even more in front of his goddess. The special police officer had just stepped onto the first step of the bus, his hand still resting on the door handle. The whole car burst into laughter, and the boys chimed in one after another. "Yes, yes, yes, officer, you finally caught us. What's in my backpack isn't textbooks, it's meth." The special officer's expression darkened bit by bit. In my past life, I had stood up at this very moment, hurriedly taking out my exam admission ticket and school ID to prove my identity, but in this life, I simply watched Guze perform. In silence, the special officer's hand rested on the radio at his waist. "Say that again. What's on the bus?" The voice wasn't loud, but the laughter of the few classmates closest to him abruptly stopped. Guze was still caught up in the whole class's roar of laughter and spread his hands with an innocent look. "Oh, officer, just kidding. Stay where you are." The SWAT officer's voice turned cold as he had already pressed the radio. "Third lane east of the toll station, a coach bus. The people on board claim they are transporting drugs, requesting backup." Inside the bus, it was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Guze's smile froze on his face. "Officer, it really was a joke. Shut up. This is a drug-related case. There's no room for jokes." The SWAT officer swept his gaze over the bus and added into the radio, "There are about 40 people on the bus, all claiming to be students. Several others have voluntarily admitted to being involved in drug trafficking. Please dispatch the narcotics unit and the K9 unit." Several boys in the front row turned deathly pale. Officer, we really were just joking. We're from Experimental High School, on our way to take the college entrance exam." The SWAT officer said expressionlessly, "Who just said there was meth in the backpack? Hand it over." The boy hurriedly opened his backpack, his hands trembling. Look. It's all textbooks and stationery. There's no meth here. We'll see about that after we check." The SWAT officer took gloves from his belt and slowly put them on. Guze finally panicked. He instinctively turned to look at me. In our past life, every time he got into trouble, it was always me, the study committee member, who stepped up to clean up the mess. I met his gaze for a second, then lowered my head and turned a page in my mistake notebook. "Sunyenin," he hissed in a low voice. "Take out your exam admission ticket and show it to the officer." Without looking up, I replied softly, "My admission ticket is buried at the very bottom of my backpack. I can't find it right away." He stared at me, his face full of disbelief. Shinchusha quickly walked over to his side, hooked her arm through his, and said nervously, "Guze, what do we do?" The police seemed to have taken it seriously. Guze swallowed and reached up to pat her head. "It's fine, I'll handle it." He took a deep breath, forced out a flattering smile, and walked toward the SWAT officers. "Officer, I'm the class monitor for this class. Our whole class's admission tickets are all here." He pulled a file bag out of his pants pocket and was just about to hand it over. The sirens of 3 police cars sounded from outside the toll station, their piercing wail exploding into the morning air. 40 pairs of eyes in the class turned to look out the window. 4 police cars, 2 narcotics enforcement vehicles, and 1 police dog transport van. They tightly surrounded the bus, the hand Guze had raised, holding the document bag, froze midair. 2. Nobody move. Put your hands on the back of the seat in front of you. 7 or 8 fully armed narcotics police officers rushed onto the bus. The girls were so frightened that their eyes turned red, and some began to sob quietly. Guze was pinned to his seat by 2 narcotics officers, his face pressed against the seat back, his voice distorted. "Officer, I was really just joking. I'm a student, a college entrance exam candidate." The narcotics officer remained Expressionless, you personally admitted to transporting drugs. We must conduct a full inspection of the vehicle and everyone on board. A drug-sniffing dog was brought onto the bus, with its nose close to the floor. It started sniffing one seat after another from the front row. The carriage was so quiet that the tapping of its paws on the iron floor could be heard. Guze's eyes turned red with anger, and he suddenly turned to glare at me. I was all too familiar with that look in my previous life. On the deck, just before he kicked me into the sea, he had given me that same look. Sunyenin, say something already. You're the class rep. You have the entire class's student records in your hands. Can you really die if you step up and explain it to the police? I lifted my head and looked at his flushed face, my voice calm. Didn't you say I was making a mountain out of a molehill? When someone tells the SWAT on the highway that there's drugs in the car and it gets taken seriously, isn't that a perfectly normal reaction if I step up to explain? You'll just say I'm sticking my nose into other people's business again. He froze for a second, then burst out cursing. Are you crazy? You're arguing with me about this at a time like this. I lowered my head again and continued working through the wrong answer notebook. The police dog sniffed through the entire vehicle and found no contraband, but the narcotics officers did not let their guard down. There's nothing on the car. Check the undercarriage and the luggage compartment too, everyone. Get off the vehicle, take out all your luggage and submit to a bag inspection. The students stumbled off the bus and stood in the open area beside the toll station. 2 technicians crawled under the bus, tapping and inspecting the chassis. Several other narcotics officers opened the luggage compartment, dragging out suitcases one by one. Zippers were roughly yanked open, clothes and textbooks tossed into disarray. Just then, a taxi screeched to a halt at the toll station entrance, the homeroom. Teacher, Ms. Lee, stumbled and scrambled over, clutching a stack of documents in her hand. Officer, I'm their homeroom teacher. They're all examinees from experimental middle school. Here's the school's letter of introduction, the student roster, copies of their exam permits. Please verify. She had run too frantically, her high heel twisted, and she tumbled face first onto the ground. Her knees and palms were scraped raw, blood seeping out from her pants legs. She didn't care about the pain. Scrambling to her feet and rushing toward the drug enforcement officers. Please, let the children go take their exam first. If you need to search, I'll stay and go through it with you. They've studied hard for 12 years. This can't be the end of it. The head of the drug enforcement team glanced at the documents in her hand, then at the police dog still conducting its inspection, his expression conflicted. We haven't found any contraband yet, but the procedure isn't complete, so we can't let them pass. Teacher Lee suddenly dropped to her knees with a thud. Officer, they're just joking around. They're only 17 or 18, still young and foolish. Could you please make an exception? Can we check while driving? The exam center is only 20 kilometers away. The anti-narcotics police captain hesitated. Just then, Guze, with newfound confidence, shouted loudly, Yeah, we were just joking. If you delay our college entrance exam, can you bear the responsibility? The Narcotics police captain's face instantly turned cold again. Some words, once spoken, are no longer a joke. Teacher Lee looked back at Guze, his eyes filled with despair. 3. The chassis inspection is complete. The luggage inspection is complete. Everything is normal. The anti-narcotics squad captain frowned at the report, seeming to be making his final decision. Teacher Lee stayed kneeling on the ground and never got up. Her lips were even split open, and she kept saying, Please, Shinchusha. Suddenly rushed out from the crowd. Her eyes were red as she pointed at me, her voice sharp. It's all her fault. She has the whole class's admission tickets in her hands. Just now, the police asked her to take it out, and she said she couldn't find it. She did it on purpose. Everyone's gaze instantly shifted to me. I stood at the very edge of the crowd, my expression calm. The narcotics squad captain looked at me. Miss, do you have any materials on you that can prove your identity? I nodded. Pulled a transparent file folder from my backpack containing my exam admission ticket and ID card. This is mine. The others are with the class monitor. I pointed at Guze. He was responsible for keeping the entire class's admission tickets. Everyone's gaze turned back to Guze. He opened his mouth, took the document folder out of his pocket, and opened it. It was completely empty inside. He turned the folder over and shook it out, but there was nothing. Where is my admission ticket, teacher? Lee's face turned completely pale. He suddenly looked at Shinchusha, his voice trembling. Chusya, you helped me hold it for a moment before I got on the bus this morning. Did you give it back to me? Shinchusya froze, suddenly rummaging through her backpack. After searching for a while, she pulled out the stack of admission tickets from the very bottom. It's here with me. She timidly handed the admission tickets to the head of the drug enforcement team, the drug enforcement officer. Checked each one carefully, ID cards, admission tickets, matching each document to the face of the person one by one. 40 people. Every time I checked one, 2 minutes passed. I glanced at my watch again. There were still 30 minutes before the exam started. It's still doable. If I finish checking now, the problem arose when I reached the 15th person. The photo on this admission ticket doesn't match the person. It was Winley. Officer, I am Wang Lei. Maybe the photo doesn't look much like me. That photo was taken last year. I lost weight. It really is me. Teacher Lee was almost about to faint. Officer, he really is Wang Lei. He really lost weight. Look at his ID card. The narcotics officer carefully compared the ID card with the person himself and reluctantly nodded, but that delay cost them another 10 minutes. There were only 20 minutes left until the exam began. Comrade, I need to report this to my superiors. The narcotics team leader picked up the walkie-talkie and walked aside. Guze suddenly turned back and looked at me with an almost pleading expression. Sun Yenin, tell the police yourself. Aren't you always the best at dealing with this kind of thing? I looked at him. In my past life, I really was the best at dealing with this kind of thing. For 3 years, I cleaned up his messes. When he got into fights, I wrote the apology letters. When he was late, I signed him in. When his grades slipped, I tutored him. In the end, he kicked me off a deck 20 meters high. Aren't you the funniest one here? Tell the police yourself. His expression shifted from pleading to anger. Sun Yenin, what exactly do you mean? Are you doing this on purpose just to laugh at us? The captain of the anti-narcotics team happened to walk back. Verification complete. No issues with the identity, just as everyone's hearts were about to settle. But, he paused, according to orders from above, everyone present needs to give a full statement and sign for confirmation. Before leaving, Teacher Lee's voice turned shrill. A statement. How long will that take? 40 people, each taking 3 to 5 minutes, plus process confirmation. He glanced at his watch. It will probably take 2 to 3 hours. For 3 hours, the first subject in the college entrance exam, Chinese, has a duration of 2.5 hours. That means even if we start taking statements right now, by the time we finish, the first exam will already be over. The number exploded like a bomb in the crowd. No, absolutely not, officer, please. I'm begging you, can we do this after the exam? We really aren't transporting drugs. Teacher Lee's legs went weak, and she nearly collapsed to the ground. The driver beside her quickly caught her trembling. She made calls to the school, to the education bureau, to everyone she could think of. The principal's voice grew urgent too. What? A drug-related report? The narcotics unit? Old Lee, what are you saying? How did it come to this? Let me speak to the narcotics team leader. The phone was handed to the narcotics police captain, and the principal repeatedly explained in the most humble tone he could muster. After listening, the narcotics police captain's expression remained unchanged. Principal, I understand how you feel, but this is not something I can decide. You can contact the city for coordination, but until instructions come from above, these people cannot go anywhere. The principal was silent for a long time. I understand. I'll contact them right away. The call ended. Some female students had already crouched on the ground, crying uncontrollably, while some male students, eyes red, pounded the ground. Zhou Hao leaned against the bus, crouched down with his head in his hands, muttering incessantly, "It's over, it's over, it's over." Guze stood in the middle of the crowd, his lips pale, his hands unconsciously tugging at his own hair. Shinchuxia was crying beside him, and he didn't even have the strength to comfort her. I stood on the outskirts of the crowd when my phone rang. It was Mom. Anan, have you arrived at the exam venue? I made mung bean soup and put it in a thermos. I'll wait for you at the school gate after your first exam. Holding the phone, my throat suddenly felt a bit tight. Mom, I might be a little late. Traffic's bad on the way. Don't worry, you'll make it. After hanging up, I glanced at my watch. There were still 10 minutes until the exam started. From afar, the faint sound of the announcement system drifted over from the exam hall direction, broken and intermittent. All candidates, please enter the venue as soon as possible. Teacher Lee crouched by the roadside, clutching her phone, her nails digging into her palm, waiting for the principal's reply. The phone didn't ring. 5 minutes. The phone didn't ring. 3 minutes. The phone didn't ring. Guze suddenly charged at the narcotics police captain like a madman. Let me in to take the exam. If I don't take it, my life is over. I told you it was a joke. Can't you understand human language? 2 narcotics officers rushed forward and pinned him down. Calm down. Keep this up and you'll be detained for obstructing official duties. He was pressed against the ground, his face against the scorching pavement, still roaring. I don't care. I need to take the exam. I need to take the exam. Shinchuxia lunged forward to pull him, but was pushed away. She fell to the ground, finally crying out, "What right do you have to stop us from taking the exam? We didn't do anything. It was him. He's the one who said it. What does it have to do with us?" She pointed at Guze. Guze lay on the ground and suddenly raised his head, watching Shinchuxia point at him. The light in his eyes shattered bit by bit. At exactly 9 o'clock, a clear bell rang in the distance. The college entrance exam had begun. The 40 of us stood in the open space by the toll station, 20 kilometers from the exam venue. Everyone's eyes turned toward the direction of the exam venue at the Same time 5, many people had already started sobbing. Just then, Teacher Lee's phone finally rang. Teacher Lee's hand was shaking so badly that she could barely hold the phone. When she pressed the answer button, 40 pairs of eyes were fixed on her face. Old Lee, it's been coordinated. Teacher Lee's body jolted violently. The Municipal Education Bureau and the Public Security Bureau spoke directly by phone. And the deputy mayor in charge has also stepped in. The anti-narcotics team agreed to simplify the procedure, but there's one condition: everyone's breathing stopped. The student who took the lead in making drug-related remarks must stay behind to cooperate with the investigation and complete the statement. Other students can be released first, and their statements can be taken after the exam. Teacher Lee abruptly turned to look at the crowd. Guze was still pinned to the ground by 2 narcotics officers, with a red mark already scraped across half of his face. How many should stay? Whoever made drug-related remarks on the bus stays. The body camera has the complete recording. There's no room for ambiguity on this. Teacher Lee's Adam's apple bobbed up and down, his voice hoarse. I understand. The moment the call ended, her knees went weak, and she nearly collapsed to the floor again. The driver beside her quickly reached out to steady her. The narcotics squad captain walked over. Having clearly also received instructions from his superiors, he stood before the crowd, facing everyone, his voice not loud but each word striking like a nail driven into their ears. Those who did not participate in drug-related discussions may leave immediately after signing a brief statement. However, anyone who voluntarily claimed involvement in drug trafficking or carrying drugs on the bus must remain to cooperate with the investigation. Please step to my left side. 3 seconds, 5 seconds. And no one moved. The anti-narcotics police captain's gaze swept across every face, finally settling on those few boys. Let me remind you, we have body cams, and there are complete audio and video records. If you refuse to cooperate with the investigation, then this takes on a different character. Chen Fei was the first to move at this moment. He had his head down, his face flushed red, his lips trembling. Then it was Wang Hao, Zhang Qiming, Lu Tianxi, and finally Guze. The anti-narcotics officer let go of him, and he slowly got up from the ground. Shin Chusha rushed forward and grabbed his sleeve, tears pattering onto the ground. Guze, don't go, you are joking, they'll understand. Guze glanced at her, his lips moved slightly, but in the end, he said nothing. He shook off her hand and walked step by step to the left, standing next to those 4 people. The narcotics squad captain nodded. The rest of you, line up to sign. Get on the bus immediately after signing. He glanced at his watch. The bureau has already communicated with the Provincial Examination Institute. They've opened a green channel for you. 3 police cars will escort you to the exam venue. The examinations board has agreed to let you enter late. His gaze swept over everyone. Line up. Hurry. Teacher Lee couldn't spare a thought for the injury on her knee. She stood up and began organizing the students to sign. A brief statement, a signature, a thumbprint, one every 15 seconds. The students crowded together. Some hands were shaking so badly they could barely write their own names, and when it came time to press their thumbprints, they had to try 3 times before getting a clear one. I didn't squeeze in with them. I walked out from the edge of the crowd and headed toward the anti-narcotics police captain. Officer, he glanced at me. My name is Sun Yenin, and I have not made any drug-related statements throughout the entire process. My ID card and admission ticket are both in my possession, and you've already verified them before. Can I leave now? He pulled up the video summary from his body camera and quickly scrolled through the timeline. I was sitting in the last row, and I didn't say a single word the entire time. The head of the narcotics unit looked at me for a few seconds, then nodded. Sure, thank you. 6. I turned around and walked toward the exit of the toll station. Sun Yenin. Teacher Lee ran out from the crowd signing documents, her high heels clicking loudly on the ground. Where are you going? Get in the car. Travel with everyone else. The police car is leading the way. We'll make it in time. I pointed to a black sedan parked outside the toll station. My dad is here to pick me up. Teacher Lee was stunned. Not just her. The students who were signing in also froze. Your dad? How? Why is he here? I didn't answer, nor did I need to explain anything to them, but the truth was simple. Before leaving home today, I sent my dad a WeChat message. Dad, drive your own car and follow behind the bus today. Wait for me near the toll station. My dad didn't ask any more questions. He put on his clothes and went out. My dad is not a man of many words. He only shows up when I need him. He was like that in my previous life too. After I went missing, he quit his job, bought a small boat, and searched back and forth along that stretch of sea for 2 years. Mom was the first to break down and was admitted to the hospital. He searched for me at sea during the day and stayed with Mom at the hospital at night, until fishermen hauled up a piece of wreckage from the deep sea. He went to do the DNA comparison by himself. I don't know what expression he had at the time. I only know that when I woke up again, I was back on the bus. Sun Yenin. Shinchushia's voice suddenly cut in sharply. I stopped in my tracks and turned back. She stood in the crowd, her eyes red-rimmed, her finger pointing at me as it trembled. You really did it on purpose. Your dad is waiting outside. Keep your own admission ticket safe. You knew something would go wrong from the very beginning, didn't you? You ruined all of us. Her voice grew louder and louder, until by the end she was almost screaming. The way my classmates around me looked at me began to change, from confusion, to suspicion, and then to anger. I stood there, looking at Chinchusha with a calm expression, looking at her flushed face, her trembling fingers, and the unwilling resentment and malice in her eyes. I knew this look all too well from my past life, on the cruise ship deck. She had the same look. I snapped back to reality. Then I heard Mr. Lee's voice, hoarse and weary. Now is not the time to assign blame. Those who've signed, get in the car quickly, time is running out. I didn't linger any longer. I pulled open the passenger side door and got in. My father glanced at the chaotic toll booth in the rearview mirror and simply said, "Fasten your seatbelt." The car drove steadily along the road. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. What were those people arguing about just now? My dad asked. A classmate jokingly told the narcotics police that there were drugs in the car, and they took it seriously. My dad was silent for a few seconds. Does he have something wrong with his head? Stay away from people like that. I know. At 9:21, I arrived at the entrance of the examination hall. The area outside the school gate was deserted. All the other examinees had already entered long ago. Only one invigilator wearing a red vest was stationed at the door, holding a walkie-talkie and a name list. "I am Sun Yenin. The examination board has been notified. You may enter through the separate channel." Upon reaching the examination hall entrance, another invigilator checked my ID card and admission ticket, then pushed the door open. I walked to my assigned seat and sat down. The test papers had already been distributed and were placed face down on the desk. I opened the exam paper, scanned through the questions. They were exactly the same as in my previous life. 7:9:38, the bus, escorted by 3 police cars, screeched to a halt at the entrance of the exam venue. The moment the bus doors opened, 34 students poured out like spilled beans. Staff from the examination board stood at the entrance holding a list, their foreheads drenched in sweat. "You're from Experimental Middle School, right? Line up. We'll verify your identities one by one." All 34 students eventually took their seats, but the cost was that they were a full 40 minutes later than the regular examinees. The Chinese language exam lasted a total of 150 minutes. They had to complete a test paper that required 150 minutes to finish, all within 110 minutes. Moreover, they had just been through a nightmare. Their hands were trembling, their minds were blank, and their eyes were swollen. When the bell rang to signal the end of the Chinese language exam, chaos had already erupted outside the examination hall. The news spread like wildfire, from parent chat groups to social media feeds, from social media feeds to local forums, and from forums to trending topics on Weibo. Guze's father, Gu Jiangwo, sent over 30 voice messages in the parents' group chat, from apologies to explanations to pleas. His tone grew increasingly humble. "Dear parents, I am truly very sorry. My son was being immature and made a very inappropriate joke. It's my failure in parenting. It's my responsibility." No one replied to him. The group chat suddenly fell silent for over 10 seconds. Then, a parent sent a text message. "Gu Jiangwo, your son destroyed 12 years of my daughter's hard work. Do you think apologizing in the group chat is useful?" A few seconds of silence passed again, then the messages came pouring out like a flood. "What's the use of apologizing? My son ranked in the top 50 in the city on the mock exam. He could have gotten into a 985 school. My daughter studied until 2 in the morning last night. One joke from your son ruined everything. Compensation, can he even afford it? My daughter only has this one chance at the college entrance exam in her whole life." Gu Jiangwo said nothing. At noon, I sat on a bench in the exam center's rest area, eating the boxed lunch my mom had brought me. The ribs were stewed until they were so tender that a light pinch with chopsticks made the meat fall right off the bone. The mung bean soup was in a thermos, still warm, not hot enough to burn my mouth. "How did the exam go?" My mom sat beside me and reached out to smooth the loose strands of hair on my forehead. "Pretty okay. I heard something happened in your class. Are you okay? Your dad said he picked you up at the toll station." "Yeah, I'm fine. I came out early." Mom pulled me into her arms, her hold tight and warm. "Mom was only afraid something would happen to you. Your score doesn't matter. What matters more than anything is that you're safe and sound." I buried my face in her shoulder and caught the faint scent of jasmine from the laundry detergent. In my past life, that scent vanished into the cold seawater. After I went missing, my mother's hair turned almost completely white overnight. She ran to every place she could think of, the police station, the Maritime Bureau, hospitals, and funeral homes. She posted over 100 missing person notices on her social media, each one accompanied by a photo of me. "Daughter, where are you? Mom is looking for you." 2 years later, fishermen hauled up a piece of wreckage from the deep sea. DNA comparison confirmed it was me. Mom fainted from crying 3 times at the funeral home and was rushed to the emergency room after she was discharged. She rarely spoke. She often sat alone on the edge of the bed in my room, touching my pillow. She would sit there for an entire afternoon. In this life, I won't let her go through any of that again. I held Mom a little tighter. Mom, I'll be fine. Her tears fell onto the shoulder of my school uniform. Beat 2:00 p.m. Math. I arrived at the exam room 20 minutes early and ran into a few classmates in the hallway. They were also hurrying to the exam room. The moment they saw me, everyone's steps faltered. Their gazes were complicated: resentment, confusion, unwillingness, and an indescribable emotion. When Johao walked past me, he suddenly said in a low voice, "Sunyanan, you really are ruthless." I glanced at him. On the deck in my past life, he was the one who came up from behind, wrapped his arms around my legs, and kept me from breaking free. I said nothing and turned to walk into my exam room. Halfway through the math exam, a commotion broke out in the hallway. Only later did I learn that something had gone wrong in the next exam room. Zhao Siki suddenly broke down and was helped out of the exam room. In the hallway, she crouched against the wall, clutching her head, her fingernails nearly digging into her scalp. "I can't do this anymore. I really can't do this anymore." Zhao Siki, in her previous life, scored 289 on the science comprehensive exam, ranking in the top 50 in the province, 144 in math, and a national second prize in the competition. She had already secured eligibility for Tsinghua's leading talent program with a reduced admission score requirement. In this life, her gaokao ended early on the afternoon of the first day, and the starting point of all this was just Guze trying to show off a little in front of the girl he liked. That night, I sat at my desk and opened the review materials for tomorrow's science comprehensive and English exams. My phone was thrown onto the bed, buzzing nonstop. Class group. I didn't look, but Mom was sitting next to me and couldn't help picking it up to skim through it a few times. And then, there was something strange in her voice. "Your classmate Shinchusha said in the group chat that you deliberately refused to help and dragged the whole class down." Mom fell silent for a few seconds. "What do you think?" I looked up at Mom for a long time. So long that she became a little uneasy. "After quite a while," she said softly, "and in any case, you didn't do anything wrong." I gave at 11 o'clock. My phone vibrated again. It wasn't a group message, but a separate text. It was Teacher Lee's number. "Sunyanan, do your best on tomorrow's exam. Leave the other matters to me. No matter what others say, you didn't do anything wrong." I stared at this message for a long time. The screen's light shone on my face, flickering on and off in the dark room. In my past life, Teacher Lee had said something similar. When the incident first happened, she patted my shoulder and said, "Nyanan, it's all thanks to you, otherwise the whole class would have been finished. I'll remember your kindness." But what happened later, the parents jointly wrote a complaint letter, demanding an explanation from the school. At the parent-teacher meeting, the principal asked Teacher Lee to come on stage to respond. Teacher Lee stood on the podium, surrounded by 20 or 30 parents questioning her, sweat beading on her forehead. She held out for 10 minutes, then said one sentence: "Sunyanan's handling of the emergency did indeed have some improper aspects. I apologized to all the parents." That day, I was standing in the hallway outside the classroom and heard every word. After I got home that day, I sat alone in my room, from 8 in the evening until 6 the next morning. Not this life, because I did nothing. I didn't step forward, I didn't explain, and I didn't clean up the mess. You don't have to take responsibility for something you didn't do. No one can pin a label on someone who stayed silent from start to finish. I replied with one word: "Okay." I turned off my phone, and 3 minutes later, I fell asleep. 9. The second day of the college entrance exam, Science Comprehensive and English. As I walked into the exam hall, I passed by the corridor where my classmates' exam rooms were located. I instinctively glanced through the window. Shinchusha was sitting by the window. Her eyes were swollen like 2 walnuts, her hair was hastily tied into a ponytail, and a few stray strands stuck to her cheeks. Her hands were folded on the desk, her fingertips slightly pale. The few classmates next to me weren't doing much better. Their bodies were sitting in the exam hall, but their souls might still have been out on that open space at the toll station. I looked away and walked into my own exam room. Comprehensive science. 300 points, 2.5 hours. When I finished the last big biology question, there were still 25 minutes left. I checked it over once and made sure I hadn't missed anything. When the bell rang, I neatly folded my paper and placed it on the corner of the desk. English in the afternoon was the last subject. When I finished writing the last period of my essay, I glanced at the clock. There were still 20 minutes left. I didn't rush to check it. Instead, I put down my pen, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. A scene suddenly flashed through my mind. In my past life, on the graduation trip, seawater surged in from all directions, filling my mouth, nose, and lungs. I was sinking, dragged downward by an irresistible darkness. "The exam is over. All candidates, please stop writing immediately." The sound of the broadcast pulled me back to reality. I opened my eyes and saw the other examinees around me putting away their stationery and closing their test papers. Everything was normal. Everything was calm. I looked down at my own hands, then I stood up, took my admission ticket, and walked out of the examination room. On the evening after the Gaokao ended, it was bustling outside the exam hall. Some people hugged, some cried loudly, and some tore their review materials into pieces and threw them into the air. The white scraps of paper tumbled in the sunset. I stood at the school gate, quietly watching it all. Our classmates came out in twos and threes. No one tore up books, and no one celebrated. Their expressions were dull and lifeless. When Shinchusha came out, her gaze was straight and hollow as she passed me. Shinchusha's eyes finally focused for a second. She looked at me, with hatred, unwillingness, and grievance. I did not look away, nor did I speak. We held each other's gaze for less than a second. Then she lowered her eyes and walked past me. Then I saw Guzei. His hair was a mess, his school uniform was wrinkled, and his dark circles were so heavy it looked like he'd been punched twice. It was only later that I learned what had happened. After giving their statements, the few people who had been held back yesterday, Qinfei, Zhang Qiming, and Lu Tianxi, were released that afternoon. They made it to the math exam that afternoon on the first day, but Guzei didn't. He wasn't let out until 11 o'clock the next morning. When Guzei walked out of the school gate, his father, Gu Jiangwo, was standing by the roadside under the plane trees. The father and son looked at each other for a second. Gu Jiangwo raised his hand, and I thought he was going to hit him. His hand hung in the air for 1 second. Then that hand slowly, weakly, fell back down. He turned and walked toward the car parked by the roadside. As he reached the car door, his shoulders began to shake. One after the other, Guzei stood at the school gate, watching his father's retreating back, his lips pressed into a tight line, not moving a muscle. I witnessed it all, feeling an odd sense of calm inside. The images from my past life began to fade. Moonlight on the deck, the chill of the seawater, those memories remain vivid, but the resentment has faded a little at this moment. 10. My dad's car was parked across the street. He rolled down the window and waved at me. I crossed the street, opened the car door, and got in. All exams finished. Yeah, how did it feel? Not bad. It probably won't be worse than the mock exam. All right, go home for dinner. Your mom made pork rib stew. The car merged into traffic, and the setting sun shone through the windshield, bathing the whole cabin in a honey-colored glow. I leaned back in my seat and slightly narrowed my eyes. An old song was playing on the radio, its melody slow and gentle. My dad hummed along for a couple of lines, and he was off-key. I gave a small smile. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, and it was a text message from an unfamiliar number. Sunianan, are you coming on the graduation trip? Sent at June 8, 1847. 47 minutes after the final exam of the college entrance examination ended, I stared at the message, my thumb hovering above the screen. That was fast. In my previous life, this invitation had also come not long after the college entrance examination ended. Back then, I was completely unsuspecting and happily replied with, come on then. At the end of July, I boarded that cruise ship named Starsea, and then I died. The wording of the text message in this life is exactly the same as in the previous one. Not even the punctuation marks have changed. I don't know who sent the text message. Maybe it was Guzei, maybe it was Shin Chusha, or maybe it was any one of them, but that doesn't matter. I turned my phone over, screen facing down, and rested it on my knees outside the car window. The last trace of sunset on the horizon was fading away. The streetlights came on one by one, forming a winding ribbon of light in the dusk. My dad glanced at the phone I was covering out of the corner of his eye. Who is it from? Nothing. A classmate asked if I'm free during summer break. Are you free? No. My dad grunted in acknowledgement and didn't ask further. I leaned against the car window, watching the streetlights recede rapidly outside. In my heart, I silently replied to that text message with one sentence, come. Of course I'll come this time. I want to see who's standing on the deck and who's sinking to the bottom of the sea, but that's a matter for later. No, I'm going home to drink some pork rib soup. The end. Story 2. When my parents sent me abroad, Leo was playing in the college freshman basketball tournament. Both my own sister and my fiancé were there cheering him on. That glory should have been mine. The star-signed jersey he was wearing should have been my 14th birthday present. I spent most of my life competing with Leo, whether I was right or wrong. The moment he pretended to be pitiful, our parents would immediately take his side and blame me, but I'm their biological son. It wasn't until I fell ill and died alone abroad that I finally saw the truth. If there's a next time, I won't bother competing with Leo for a love that was always biased in his favor. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself reborn at the age of 13. It was the day Leo was officially registered into our family. Leo was my uncle's only son. His parents had taken him out for a drive when they were tragically killed in a car accident. Though Leo survived, his health was left fragile. My father and his brother were close, and not wanting Leo to suffer in an orphanage, my parents adopted him as their And Leo sat beside his mother, his voice brimming with joy. Am I really going to have a mom and dad now? They won't call me a stray child anymore, right? His mother affectionately patted his shoulder. That's right. From now on, we'll be your parents, and this will be your home. I stood on the stairs, watching the cheerful scene below with a cold gaze until Dad noticed me. He frowned, his expression guarded, as if he'd already decided I was going to give Leo a hard time. What are you doing? Standing there. Do I need to invite you down? From now on, Leo is your real brother. He's frail and has been through a lot, so you need to be considerate towards him. I don't want to see you picking on him. Hearing those same words as if from a past life, my heart sank. Leo is delicate, so as his older brother, you must always give way to him. I've heard these two lines so many times in my past life that they're practically worn into my ears. In my past life, I was originally the most cherished child in the family, but ever since my parents adopted Leo, they've always favored and doted on him. Because he had a pitiful background and was sickly, I had to give in to him and accommodate his every need. In the end, even the last bit of affection that belonged to me was completely given to him. But I'm only half a month older than him. Leo is just my cousin, for heaven's sake. Why do my parents drop everything to cater to his every whim like he's their own son, just because he plays the delicate card? I still remember how in my past life, after Leo set me up, my parents didn't even hear me out. Instead, they rushed to comfort him. In the end, swayed by his tearful accusations, they straight up convicted me and shipped me off abroad, out of sight, out of mind. They even had the nerve to say they'd done all they could for me, and that they wanted no part of a son as vicious as me. Maybe I got lost in my memories and didn't respond to Dad, because Mom started laying into me too. Nathan, be reasonable and stop picking on Leo. A glint of triumph flashed in Leo's eyes. Seeing my silence, he decided to pour fuel on the fire. I promise I'll never go into your room again. Please don't be mad at me anymore. Oh right, the other day he swaggered into my room and deliberately smashed my figurine right in front of me. When our parents arrived, he instantly switched back to his pitiful act, sobbing about wanting to return to the orphanage and claiming I didn't welcome him. And of course, my parents immediately started yelling at me. Without even hearing my side of the story, I let out a cold laugh and turned to go upstairs. Mom called for me, but Dad cut her off. Just leave him be. From now on, keep an eye on Leo so he doesn't get bullied. You're old enough to know better. My hand on the railing stilled for a moment before I continued to my room as if nothing had happened. Even from the moment I was reborn, when I decided to let go of their love for me, my own father's betrayal still felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I paid no attention to Leo, having been given this rare second chance. I wasn't about to waste it on people like him. If I just focus on my studies, I'll have what it takes to break free from this family. I won't stand in the way of their perfect little family of four anymore. I was working on problems in my room when the door rattled with knocks, followed by Leo's deliberately hushed voice from outside. Nathan, don't think hiding in your room like a coward will keep you safe. Sooner or later, your parents will be mine. Just wait and see how I'll drive you out of here. I pretended not to hear his arrogant remarks anyway. I have no interest in competing with him in this lifetime, but after a while, I heard Leo starting to cry outside the door. Sis, is brother Nathan still mad at me? I brought him a drink, and he told me to get lost. I shouldn't have touched that figure. I know I don't deserve it. Maybe I should just go back to the orphanage. You've all been so good to me, and I'll repay you someday. I hope brother Nathan can forgive me after I'm gone. Mom rushed over to comfort him. It's not your fault. We've spoiled Nathan rotten. His sister Joanna chimed in. Nathan just has a terrible temper. I'll have a word with him later. You're part of our family now. Hearing you talk like this breaks our hearts. The noise was getting on my nerves, so I swung the door open. Could you two stop being all lovey-dovey right outside my room? It's gross. Leo started apologizing in a panic. I'm so sorry, Nathan. I didn't mean to. I'll pack my things and go back to the orphanage right away. Please don't be mad at me. This is all my fault. Joanna frowned and started scolding me. Nathan, you're getting more and more irritable these days. It's just an action figure. Do you really need to keep harping on it? Mom also turned her gaze toward me. That's enough, Nathan. There's a limit to throwing a tantrum. Besides, you're the one who broke the figure. What does it have to do with Leo? I gripped the doorknob tightly. I'll say it again. He's the one who broke the figurine, not me. Dad came up the stairs and started yelling at me. Nathan, stop blaming Leo for everything. You need to own up to your mistakes. What would Leo gain by lying to us? Don't think you can pin this on him just because he's an easy target. Let me make this clear. From now on, Leo is your brother, so cut the attitude. I let it slide earlier to spare your dignity, but you will apologize to Leo, right? Now, I watched as my parents stood against me, with Joanna comforting Leo in a hushed tone, her arm around his shoulder. They looked like a perfect family of four, while I was just some outsider living under their roof. It's absolutely absurd. Parents who don't believe their own child but trust an outsider instead of having my back, they're aggressively demanding I apologize to the very person who set me up. Even my own sister, who's always doted on me since we were kids, has become Leo's sister now. Catching the faint smirk on Leo's lips, I slammed the door shut before my father could finish scolding me. No amount of pounding or demands for an apology from the other side would make me open it. Leaning against the door, I tried to calm myself, but I could still faintly hear them comforting Leo. Nothing had really changed from my past life to this one. Even though I wasn't giving Leo a hard time like I did in my past life, they'd still assume I was bullying him. All he had to do was shed a few tears, and suddenly his mistakes became my fault. My 14th birthday arrived. My parents got me a jersey with my favorite player's autograph. They knew how much I idolized him and how badly I wanted his signature, but I felt no joy at all, just staring blankly at the jersey. "Nathan, we haven't been ignoring you. We still love you," Mom said gently. "But you need to be nicer to Leo and work on controlling your temper, okay?" Dad seized the opportunity to advise me as well. "No, we went through a lot of trouble to get this autograph you wanted. We just hope you can understand our efforts and take good care of Leo. As the older brother, you should be more responsible and set a good example for Leo." I noticed a fleeting look of envy in Leo's eyes, followed by a hesitant expression, clearly wanting to touch but not daring to, as he stared longingly at the jersey in my hand. Do you like this star player too, Nathan? I'm a fan as well, but my family couldn't afford to indulge me back in the day. Could I just touch the jersey? I promise I won't damage it. I'm so envious of you, Nathan. Mom and Dad always spoil you like this. Leo's forlorn expression immediately tugged at our parents' heartstrings. Just like in our past life, Dad snatched the jersey from my hands and gave it to Leo instead. He said to me in a tone that brooked no argument, "Since Leo likes it, you should let him have it. You haven't forgotten what I just told you about giving in to your younger brother, have you?" Leo grabbed the jersey and asked in surprise, "Are you really giving this to me? I'm so happy, Mom." His mother gently stroked his hair. "Of course you can have it. We're family. What's Nathan's is yours too, your brother's. After all, just like in my past life, Leo took that jersey right out of my hands. My parents promised they'd get me an even better gift to make up for it, but I never saw hide nor hair of it before I died. When I stubbornly insisted on fighting Leo for it, I got an earful from my parents instead. They scolded me, saying I wasn't as mature as Leo, but why should his fake, two-faced apology mean my gift becomes his? And then they have the nerve to tell me to be the bigger person. He's not even my real brother. Why should I have to give in to him? Even though I knew the answer, I still couldn't help asking, whose birthday is it anyway, mine or his? Why does he get all the presents? Dad flew into a rage, pointing his finger right in my face as he yelled, "The older you get, the more inconsiderate you become. We're family. Do you really have to keep score like this? Haven't you gotten plenty of gifts before? All you ever think about is presents. Do you have any idea how hard we work? This is what happens when we've spoiled you all along." I nodded in disappointment and headed upstairs without another word. Behind me, Leo's muffled sobs lingered, but my parents were too busy comforting him. Even Joanna gave him the birthday gift that was originally meant for me, but today was supposed to be my birthday. 2 weeks later, for Leo's birthday, my dad rented out an entire arcade so Leo could invite his whole class to celebrate. All it took was Leo mentioning he wanted to invite his classmates to hang out for their dinner. Dad generously booked out a 5-star hotel. I heard the spread was incredible, complete with a 3-tier cake, yet as their own son, I wasn't even on the guest list. They just handed me $20 and told me to get my own dinner. Their excuse, they were afraid I'd cause a scene at Leo's birthday party and make things awkward. They didn't even bother to bring me back a slice of cake. I was home alone, eating leftover lunch by myself. I didn't complain or make a scene, just quietly sat in my room with a book, preparing for the day I'd leave this house. The midterm exam results came out, and I got first place as I'd hoped. Meanwhile, the school also held a parent-teacher conference. The moment I got home, I heard the dejection in Leo's voice. "Mom, I'm so stupid. I can't even keep up with Nathan. Are you going to abandon me? But I just can't learn this. I'm too dumb to deserve being your child." Dad comforted him. "Don't worry about it. Grades aren't everything. Besides, you know Nathan's academic performance. He's never been one to study seriously. Those scores were probably copied from someone else." Mom agreed too. "That's right, Leo. You're doing just fine as you are. Don't push yourself too hard with studying. Your body can't handle that kind of strain." They claim to love me, yet they tear me down in front of Leo just to comfort him and make him happy. If they weren't my own parents, I'd have to applaud them for being such doting parents. Standing at the door, I curled my lips into a mocking smile. Leo finally stopped crying and broke into a smile. "Mom and Dad are so wonderful. I don't have to worry about going back to the orphanage anymore. His mother held him close, her heart aching for him. Of course not, you'll always be our child. Your big sister will take care of you. Don't worry, Joanna promised, patting her chest for emphasis. Leo gave an apologetic smile and looked at his parents expectantly. Could you both come to the parent-teacher meeting for me? Of course, we'll both be there. His father reassured him. It was only then that Leo seemed to notice me, calling out, "Brother Nathan." The atmosphere in the living room instantly turned cold. I pretended not to hear and walked straight into the living room. There's a parent-teacher conference at school. Which one of you is going? My mother pursed her lips and spoke to me apologetically. Nathan, your father and I need to attend Leo's parent-teacher conference. As for your situation, I cut her off without ceremony, tilting my head back to ask, does it really take both of you to go to his parent-teacher meeting? How can you be so inconsiderate? You know exactly how fragile Leo's health is, and the doctor specifically said he needs proper care. I'd expect more understanding from an older brother, but now you're even competing for attention. I knew the outcome would mirror my past life, yet I still clung to hope. Only to humiliate myself, I turned and walked back to my room, ignoring the curses hurled at my back, but my heart kept growing colder. My 15th birthday arrived right on schedule. When I got home from school, the house was empty and eerily quiet. I just grabbed my phone from my room when Mom's call popped up. When I answered, it was pretty noisy on her end. Nathan, your dad and I are stuck at work. We won't be able to celebrate your birthday with you this year. Leo and your sister are here with us. Mom sent you a WeChat red envelope. Make sure to claim it and get yourself a meal. We're not coming back tonight. No need to wait up for us. I heard Leo call out Mom, loudly, and she quickly hung up the phone. I scrolled through my phone, saw the WeChat red envelope from Mom, gave a wry smile, and left it unclaimed. It's not even $200, hardly worth claiming. Just as I finished cooking instant noodles and pulled out my phone to study, I suddenly saw Leo's social media post. I'd completely forgotten about this. In my past life, my birthday played out exactly like today, all because some moderately famous singer was performing in the next city over. The moment Leo mentioned wanting to go, my parents immediately took him in. Joanna without a second thought. Later, Mom finally remembered it was my birthday. She sent me 200 yuan and lied, saying they were working overtime. How ridiculous. But the next day, I saw Leo's social media post. When they got back, I threw a fit. 3 years later, Leo was in tears saying he wanted to go back to the orphanage, and my dad forced me to bow my head and apologize to him. Snapping out of my memories, I clicked open his social media feed. Leo was holding up a fan sign, flashing a big victory sign at the camera. There's also a photo of the 4 of them together as a family, with the concert venue in the background. Yes, it's the 4 of them as a family. I'm not in it. Everyone in the family is smiling happily. They said they had to work overtime and couldn't celebrate my birthday with me, only sending me a WeChat red envelope capped at 200 yuan. Yet, they went to a concert with Leo on my birthday without me, and even lied about it. This has happened in both of my lifetimes. It suddenly made me feel sick to my stomach. Time flew by, and I successfully got into a prestigious high school, managing to secure a spot in the dormitory as I'd hoped. To avoid Leo, I didn't even go home on regular holidays, instead handing out flyers to earn some pocket money. But when summer break rolled around, I had no excuse to stay away, so I packed my bags and headed home. It seemed that in the 6 months I'd been gone, the 4 of them had grown even closer. He feels more like family than I do. The actual son. When I got home, the living room was empty, but I didn't think much of it and just headed upstairs with my suitcase. As I opened the door, I was met with an unfamiliar sight. Instead of my usual room, my bed and desk were gone, replaced by several high-end computers and gaming chairs, with a white projector screen for movies off to the side. Leo heard the noise, took off his headphones, and when he saw it was me, he raised an eyebrow smugly. Well, if it isn't Nathan, finally decided to come back. See for yourself. Mom and Dad have converted your room into my gaming den. Sometimes the whole family even watches movies in here now. I told you I'd drive you out of the Song family. This is just the beginning. I kicked the door open with a loud crash and stared at him coldly. He smirked, sat on the floor, and looked up at me defiantly. This house is no longer your home. Just as I was about to retort in anger, he suddenly burst into loud sobs. Nathan, please don't send me away. Joanna was the first to arrive at the scene. She pushed me aside and knelt anxiously beside Leo. Leo, what's wrong? Who's been bothering you? Leo leaned against Joanna's shoulder, his eyes red-rimmed as he spoke. Sis, this is all my fault. I just really wanted to unwind with some games. Please don't argue because of me. Families should get along peacefully. Brother hasn't been home for 6 months. He must have missed you both terribly. If he's uncomfortable with me being here, I can leave. At my age, I should be learning to stand on my own anyway. After speaking, Leo coughed violently a few times, his body swaying unsteadily as if he might collapse at any moment. Joanna immediately studied him and yelled at me, "Nathan, must you stir up so much trouble at home? The moment you come back, you're already upsetting your brother. You're nothing but a jinx. Whenever you're home, everyone feels uncomfortable. Leo doesn't owe you anything. In fact, he's always defended you. And what do? The minute you step through the door, you try to kick him out. Are you even human?" Faced with Joanna's heartbroken accusations, I suddenly felt utterly drained. Without letting me say a word, she pinned all these accusations on me. It's clear now, my sister would always take Leo's side over her own flesh and blood. In this life and the next, the relentless stream of insults ringing in my ears pushed me over the edge. Before I knew it, my hand shot out and slapped Joanna across the face. Joanna's head snapped to the side, stunned into silence. Our parents, who had just arrived, froze in disbelief. "Nathan, what on earth are you doing?" Mom held Joanna close, her heart aching for her daughter. Even little Leo stumbled to his feet and came over to comfort Joanna. Dad looked at me with profound disappointment. "Nathan, I don't know what they're teaching you out there, but how dare you hit your own sister? It's clear you have no respect for this family anymore. The house is actually more peaceful without you. The moment you come back, you turn the whole place upside down." I met my father's gaze without flinching and asked sarcastically, "When has this house ever felt like mine? My dear family even converted the room I lived in for over a decade into a gaming room for my nephew." Both my parents froze, guiltily averting their eyes, sensing the tension. Leo covered his mouth and began sobbing quietly. "I'm sorry, Nathan. This is all my fault. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have upset Mom and Dad. If I leave, you'll be able to get along with them again. I'll go now. I'm truly grateful for all the kindness Mom, Dad, and my sister have shown me over the years." His face pale as a sheet, he tried to leave but was stopped by Joanna. My parents immediately forgot about scolding me and gathered around Leo to comfort him instead. Catching Nathan's subtle, smug smile directed at me, I turned and carried my suitcase to the guest room on the first floor. When I finally left my room the next day, it was already noon. The whole family was seated around the table, which was laden with steaming dishes. Leo greeted me warmly when I came out. "Hey Nathan, you're up. I got this especially for you. My family and I always eat at this place. It's amazing. So I ordered takeout. You should try some too." "Nathan, I bought this with my own money. You know, this happened in my past life too. But back then Leo insisted on cooking me a bowl of birthday noodles himself to celebrate my birthday. I just knocked over that bowl of noodles because I'm allergic to seafood and couldn't eat the seafood pasta, and it seemed like my parents and Joanna had forgotten about my seafood allergy too, blaming me without distinguishing right from wrong. Even after they found out, they brushed it off, saying, "If you didn't want to eat it, couldn't you just say so? Did you have to ruin Leo's thoughtful gesture? Leo didn't know you were allergic. How could he not know? The first time I ever ate seafood was at Leo's house. Before that, I'd never had seafood and didn't know I was allergic." After eating a shrimp at Leo's place, I broke out in hives all over my body, and the whole family was frantic with worry. Back then, Joanna was still like a sister to me. Having watched too many TV dramas, she thought my aunt was trying to harm me. She shoved her hard, her eyes red as she pointed and yelled at my aunt. She was only 8 years old, so timid she wouldn't even ask the price when shopping, yet for my sake, she dared to confront the adults and loudly condemn them. I blinked, trying to hide the stinging sensation in my eyes, seeing me still standing there with no intention of taking a seat. Joanna lost her patience. "Nathan, where are your manners? The whole family has been waiting for you all this time. Who do you think you're giving the cold shoulder to?" I looked at the seafood feast on the table and, seeing not a hint of surprise on their faces, asked softly, "I've lived in this house for over a decade. Leo just got here. How could you forget I'm allergic to seafood?" For the whole family fell silent, and even Joanna, for once, kept her mouth shut. They were so worried about me back then. Even Dad was shouting about cutting ties with my uncle's family. Joanna kept throwing herself on me, crying, saying she'd give me her favorite doll. Leo was hiding in the corner at the time. There's no way he didn't know. Ever since I developed a seafood allergy, seafood has completely disappeared from our dinner table. Even when they eat out, they never order any seafood, but now they've forgotten all about it. In their eyes, there's only Leo. I no longer exist. Our parents looked somewhat ashamed. Leo said tearfully, his voice trembling with anxiety, "I'm sorry, Nathan. I had no idea. This is all my fault. Please don't blame Mom and Dad. I'll just leave." He staggered toward the door. My parents, paying no attention to me, rushed over to comfort him. "It's okay. You didn't mean to do it. That's right. Nathan is fine anyway, so don't blame yourself. Nathan, come and comfort Leo. As the victim, I'm supposed to comfort the perpetrator. That's just absurd. I didn't bother with this farce and simply walked away. Soon, the college entrance exam came to an end. I scored 736 points, earning the title of top science student in our province, and was admitted to Tsinghua University as I had hoped. My parents seemed to have regained their pride. They stopped criticizing me, even threw a college acceptance party in my honor. and praised me to everyone they met, so much so that Leo ended up being neglected on the day of the college celebration banquet. My parents were cheerfully entertaining the guests. Suddenly, Joanna rushed over to them with an anxious look, whispering a few words. Their faces immediately clouded with worry, and they hastily left with Joanna. Abandoning the gathered guests, they left the guests behind, exchanging bewildered glances. Having lived 2 lives, I'd already figured out Leo's tricks. He just uses his health to grab their attention. I didn't panic. Instead, I calmly and efficiently took over. Hosting the guests by myself, I earned their praise. No one was more enthusiastic than Pamela's mother. She was my mother's friend who had Pamela out of wedlock, and even arranged a childhood betrothal between us. Pamela and I grew up together. She used to cling to me all the time when we were kids. Joanna would often tease us because Pamela would blush whenever she saw me and shyly offer me little snacks. When the Gu family took her away, she tearfully promised to marry me someday and begged me not to fall for anyone else. In my past life, after Joanna stole all my family away, Pamela was my only hope. I genuinely loved Pamela in that lifetime, yearning for her affection to prove I wasn't so worthless, but she'd already been involved with Leo to defend his honor. She left our engagement party with him. I waited for hours in vain, becoming the laughingstock of everyone present. I thought my parents would stand up for me. After all, I was their biological son. It wasn't until later that I discovered the ones covering for them were my own parents and sister. I snapped out of my thoughts, looked at Pamela's mother who was trying to get chummy with me, and gave a faint smile. Auntie, I'm going to the hospital to visit Leo. Having studied finance at Tsinghua University, I knew my skills could be useful for the Gu family's current mess. To build rapport with me, she ended up following me to the hospital. A small crowd had gathered around Leo's hospital bed. He lay propped against the pillows, looking frail. Mom, Dad, sorry for worrying you. It's just low blood sugar. I'm fine. You should go back and keep Nathan company. I don't want to make Nathan angry with me again. With that, he coughed a few times. Nathan's a grown man. He can take care of himself. It's your health that has me worried. Mom's tone was filled with affection and concern. Don't worry, Auntie. I'm here to help. Pamela gazed at Leo with tender affection, his ears turning bright red. Mom seemed to have completely forgotten Pamela was my fiancé. Beaming with the knowing smile of a delighted matchmaker, these two make such a perfect couple. Pamela sat by Leo's bedside, blushing as she leaned down to press a gentle kiss on his forehead, and this intimate scene was witnessed by both me and Pamela's mother. Pamela's mother widened her eyes and let out a sharp scream. Pamela, have you no shame at all? Unlike my previous life where I couldn't even get into a second-tier university, now I'm a finance student at Tsinghua University, while Leo only made it to a vocational college. In our previous lives, neither Leo nor I achieved much, but Leo was clearly the favorite. To gain connections with the Song family, Pamela's mother still arranged for her to marry Leo. When Pamela saw me, her face was full of disgust as she pointed at me and said, Mom, I can't stand Nathan. I want to break off the engagement with him. I want to marry Leo. I'm in love with Leo. She walked up to me, and I could no longer see any trace of the girl she once was, the one who used to hold my hand, press candy into my palm, and cry, saying she didn't want to leave and would stay with me forever. That girl was gone, and the expression on her face slowly overlapped with that of Pamela from her past life, the same arrogance and conceit, utterly repulsive. Nathan, I would never fall for a man with no class like you. My heart belongs to Leo alone. If I find out you've been messing with him again, you'll have me to deal with. All you know how to do is bully those weaker than you. Disgusting, Pamela's mother scolded. What nonsense are you talking? You even said you wanted to marry Nathan when you were little. Pamela let out a cold, scornful laugh. I was blind as a child. Really, what a coincidence. So was I. Pamela's mother didn't manage to cover Pamela's mouth in time, too embarrassed to look at me. She could only half drag Pamela away. Only my parents, Joanna, Leo, and I remained in the hospital room. Even after 2 lifetimes, I still asked that question. You knew all along that Leo and Pamela were together, didn't you? A flicker of guilt crossed Mother's face. Nathan, why must you be so harsh? What do you mean by hooking up? Pamela has no feelings for you anyway. Since she likes Leo, why don't you just let him have the engagement? Joanna cut in 5. Nathan, you can't force love. If the feelings aren't there, they just aren't. Do you really think you can make Pamela fall for you? Since she has feelings for Leo, why don't you be the bigger person and step aside from the engagement? Everyone wins. Otherwise, you'll be the one left embarrassed when all is said and done. I looked at the sister who had defended Leo through 2 lifetimes, remembering how she had broken our father's most expensive tea set when we were kids. I took the blame for her and got a beating from Dad. Back in school when she was bullied by a boy in her class, she was too scared to tell our Parents, I stormed into her classroom, dragged that boy out, and we got into a fistfight. When I got home, my dad yelled at me and cut off my allowance for a whole month. When I was hospitalized with a seafood allergy, she cried and begged me, Nathan, please don't die. I can't bear to lose you. But now, she's become Leo's sister. I tilted my head back, forcing the tears to stay in. I can give up the engagement to Leo. But you must promise me 2 things. Leo's face lit up with surprise. Are you serious, Nathan? You're not messing with me, are you? I didn't look at him, but turned to my parents instead. Dad nodded with a hint of relief in his voice. Nathan, you've grown up and finally come to your senses. After all, Leo is family. There's no need for such an ugly scene that'll make us the talk of the town. I'll just tell everyone this engagement was always meant for Pamela and Leo. I gave a wry smile. Don't rush me. I haven't even said my piece yet. First, remove my household registration from the Song family. Second, sever all ties with me. From now on, I have nothing to do with any of you. Mother was stunned, completely disbelieving. Nathan, do you have any idea what you're saying? What's the big deal? Is this really necessary? Why are you always making a scene? Leo has always been in poor health. As his older brother, you should be looking out for him and taking care of him. What do you think you're doing right now? Trying to threaten us? Nathan, you're such a disappointment. I feel sick to my stomach at this point. There's no need to spare their dignity anymore. Making a scene. When have I ever made a scene? When you decided to raise him and register him as part of our family, did I make a fuss? No, right? I just don't like him. Isn't that a natural human reaction? I never hit him, never insulted him or made snide remarks, just because I don't fawn over him like you do. Does that count as making a scene? I'm your biological son. I've never been unreasonably difficult or falsely accused anyone, but ever. Since Leo showed up, you believe every word he says and act like I'm the one lying. Is that any way for parents to behave? I've never seen anything like this before. Taking in your cousin's son and raising him as your own, while treating your biological son like an orphan. You really do see something new every day. Have you forgotten that when his father said he needed money to buy a house, he borrowed $200,000 from our family? Joanna and I almost couldn't pay our tuition because of it. Oh. And by the way, that $200,000 still hasn't been repaid, has it? Instead, you're still pouring money into raising their son. You knew it was my birthday, but you completely ignored my wishes and gave my birthday present to him anyway, saying we're all family and what's mine is yours. But when has he ever let me wear his jersey? That was clearly my gift, for my birthday, but just because my nephew shed a few tears, you handed it right over to him. For his birthday, you rent out a ski resort, book a hotel, buy a cake, and then leave me at home alone eating cold leftovers. At parent-teacher conferences, even though there are 2 of you, you both crowd around to support him, making your own son the only student whose parents didn't show up. When your son came in first place, to make your nephew feel better, you actually accused your own son of cheating. You turned your son's room into your nephew's gaming den and stuck me in the guest room. Are there any parents in the world more outrageous than you? Oh right, let's not forget how you lied about working overtime while actually taking your nephew to a concert. How amusing that you forgot your own son is allergic to seafood. Is this what you call love? Shall I go on? Did you think I'd stay silent while you pretend everything's fine? Dream on. I'm starting to wonder if you swapped me with Leo at birth, like he's actually your real son. Mom's face froze, and she immediately started denying it. No, Nathan, you're our son. We love you, we really do. I carried you for 9 months. How could you ever think I don't love you? I cut her off coldly. If I'd known I'd be born into a family with no sense of morality, I'd rather have died in your womb. Mom's sobs cut in her throat, her face a mask of disbelief. Dad's face turned ashen, and even the usually domineering Joanna didn't dare make a sound. I can't be bothered to lecture her. I'm stepping back from the engagement. I expect to receive the updated household register in 3 days. Once I get my scholarship, I'll transfer the money to your account as repayment for my upbringing. Seeing my father about to speak again, I gave another light laugh. Of course, if you'd prefer us to be enemies who fight to the death whenever we meet, that's also an option. But I said it with a smile. Anyone could hear the chilling undertone in my voice. Because I'm no longer the person I was in my past life. 6. I've grown. I topped the entire province in the college entrance exams. I am a Tsinghua student. All these years of restraint have led me to this very moment. Father fell silent, his expression clouded with sorrow. Without another glance in their direction, I walked out of the hospital room. Just as I stepped out of the hospital room, I heard his sigh filled with regret. But what good would it do now? It was too late for regrets. 2 days later, the new household register arrived with only my name on it. Finally free, I watched the bustling street and broke into the most genuine, heart-easing smile of both my lifetimes. On the day Leo married Pamela, I heard the Song family didn't show up. I didn't care. I just arranged for someone to spread the truth about Pamela being an illegitimate child during the wedding. Pamela was the only child of the Gu family's main branch, rumored to be the future head of the household. After my little stunt, Various factions began piling on the pressure. Pamela found herself cornered within the Gu family, and even the family patriarch showed signs of quietly giving up on her. Without the backing of the Song family, Leo had no standing whatsoever in the Gu household. Within a year, Leo fell ill. Instead of staying by his side during treatment, Pamela was already scouting for her next husband. Rumor had it her position was too precarious. She needed a strategic marriage, which meant Leo had to succumb to his illness. I went to see Leo for the last time. He lay in the hospital bed, pale as a ghost, looking like he was at death's door. "Nathan, are you feeling smug? Mom and Dad have abandoned me, Joanna's left me, and even Pamela wants me dead." Leo could barely speak, yet he still glared at me with pure malice. "Some things never change. Nathan, I despise you. Why should you have both parents when mine are dead? I'm going to steal your family, take over your life, and trample you into the dirt. You got what you deserved." I paused at the doorway and smiled. "Don't worry, Pamela will join you soon enough." Within 2 days, I heard that Leo had died, and Pamela had gotten her wish to marry into the real estate family as the illegitimate son's bride. I next saw Pamela in her office building. After graduation, I had passed the exams and joined the tax bureau, and I was there with them to audit the Gu family conglomerate. My meticulous review ultimately confirmed that their conglomerate was guilty of tax evasion and even suspected of illegal transactions. The Zhang family pinned all the blame on Pamela, the illegitimate daughter. In the end, all of the Gu family's assets were seized, and Pamela's fate was even worse. She was sent to prison. I heard she's been wanting to meet me, but I turned her down. With no Song family members bothering me these days, my life's quite comfortable. Why should I go meet a loser? Story 2. My boyfriend took me to meet his parents. I exchanged a jade bracelet with good transparency for the fake bracelet on his mother's hand that was bought from a street stall. They laughed at me for being a fool, but I knew that this bracelet came with a portable space. I hope they won't regret it after the zombie outbreak. 1. It hurt. Every inch of my skin hurt so much. I held Hannah tightly in my arms, desperately blocking the stinky mouths of the zombies for her, but I was just too weak. Under the tearing and eating of the zombies, there was no piece of uninjured flesh left on Hannah and me. She tried her best to wipe the tears from the corner of my Yvonne, don't cry. It's okay if our flesh is eaten. At least we won't turn into disgusting zombies after we die. We'll still be beautiful even in death." As she said this, a piece of sagging flesh on her face fell off completely. I tried my best to nod, wanting to smile, but I couldn't. My chin and most of my mouth had already been bitten off. It was so tragic, truly extremely tragic, remembering that mother and son who were worse than beasts. I really hated them so much. In the intense unwillingness and pain, my consciousness became blurred. Get up. It's time for the office worker to go to work." I precisely pressed the alarm clock off with a slap and shrank back into the quilt, wanting to take a nap. No, something was wrong. Why does my phone still have battery? Why do I still have my hands? I crawled up again with a whoosh, stretched out my hand, and stared blankly at my fair and slender arm. There was not a single trace of being bitten by zombies on it. I picked up my phone. May 19th, 2023. There are still 3 years and 2 months until the zombie outbreak. I grabbed my hair irritably and ruffled it, and my mood calmed down a bit. Was it a dream? But the feeling of my skin being bitten off inch by inch was too vivid. It didn't seem like a dream. Instead, it was more like being reborn. 3. I waited outside an office building for a long time, wearing sunglasses and a mask. Sure enough, I saw Jason. The hope that it was just a dream was shattered. Cold sweat broke out on my body. It was him who coaxed Hannah and me into being his girlfriends with supplies after the apocalypse. We both refused him to his face, but secretly we both agreed. I couldn't bear to see Hannah hungry, and I couldn't bear to see her die even more. Even if I had to sacrifice my dignity, I didn't care, and Hannah felt the same way about me. Just like this, a year passed, and we didn't know what the other had sacrificed for ourselves until that night. Jason was drunk and burst into our room. "Which one of you will serve me today, or both of you together?" Seeing him step forward and pull Hannah, I picked up a vase and knocked him unconscious. "Hannah," my voice was dry, "is it true?" I still hoped that she hadn't been defiled by the scumbag. It was okay for me to be dirty, but she should remain clean. Hannah sobbed and hugged me, crying bitterly. "I've had such a hard life, but why couldn't he leave you alone either?" A thick sense of sadness wrapped around us. If we had known it would be like this, we might as well have died cleanly together. Year ago, we found a rope and strangled him to death together. Unfortunately, his mother found out. She used supplies to threaten everyone and threw Hannah and me into the group of zombies. The memories of my past life brought back my deepest and strongest hatred. I clenched my fists tightly, and my nails pierced through my skin. It was not until my palm was bloody and blurred that I managed to control the urge to tear him apart. When I got home, I developed a fever. In a daze, someone fed me medicine, put on a fever-reducing patch, and wiped my hands and face. I opened my eyes with great effort and saw that it was Hannah. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Humiliation, pain, gratitude, and relief merged into this stream of tears. I hugged her and burst into tears. Yvonne, what's wrong with you? Who bullied you? I'll find someone to beat him up. I wiped away my tears and leaned my head on her shoulder. Nothing. I just missed you so much. Miss me. Didn't we just see each other, eh? Couple of days ago, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Now it's been 2 times as long as that, which is like 6 years. Hannah was amused by me and patted my back. Haha, you're quite sweet, Didnt. Okay, stop crying. Get up and try the takeout that I personally ordered. 5. After eating the takeout, I looked at Hannah. After hesitating for a long time, I still didn't tell her about being reborn. This was too incredible. I guessed that with Hannah's personality, if I told her, she would just spend a fortune to book a VVVIP suite in a mental hospital for me. I bet she would book the room next to her father's, who suffered from paranoia and schizophrenia, so it would be convenient for her to visit. I remembered the last time I accompanied her to visit her uncle. The way he was pinned to the bed by several nurses and injected made me feel uneasy. What's wrong with you? Your face looks so pale. Of course, I couldn't say that I was afraid of her, so I quickly changed the subject. Hannah, let me take a look at the renovation plans for your new villa. Why should I show it to you? You don't want to live with me anyway. Humph, leaving me all alone. I took a beef ball from her box. I've changed my mind. We'll live together, but the renovation has to be done according to my ideas. Okay, I'll listen to you. A quarter of an hour later, the personal assistant brought the plans. Hannah watched me draw and mark on the plans. I divided the flower bed into areas for fruit trees, vegetables, and herbs and fruits. I also changed the swimming pool into a small fish pond. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. Is this a renovation? It looks more like you're turning it into a farmhouse. I remembered that in my past life, she regretted countless times that with such a large garden at home, what was the point of planting flowers? It should have been a one-stop place for planting and breeding. You'll understand later. Understand what? How can we live with the smell of fish all over the yard? I compromised. After all, I didn't like eating fish either. Then we won't raise fish. Let's build a swimming pool again, I added. But we also need to install a solar power generation system and a water circulation system. Oh, and we should also prepare a fuel generator and stock up on more diesel. We should also upgrade the security, double the number of surveillance cameras. Replace all the glass with bulletproof glass. This fence isn't good enough either. Thicken it by 1 layer and raise it by 2 meters. I marked and wrote down these requirements on the plans. Hannah was both angry and amused. Why don't you just ask me to build you a castle? Do you want 2 watchtowers as well? My eyes lit up. Really? Hannah roared. You're dreaming. Humph. The renovation can be done as you said, but after it's finished, you have to pack your things and move in immediately. I saluted in a clumsy way. Yes, ma'am. 6. I remembered that in my past life, Jason had revealed the secret of him and his mother to me. A bracelet that he bought from a street stall actually had a planting space inside. After the apocalypse, his mother was injured once and bonded with the bracelet, so they could live so comfortably in the apocalyptic world. Thinking like this, it was time for my plan to start. I changed into a dress, did my hair carefully, and put on makeup. After everything was ready, I held a bouquet of roses and came to the office building where Jason worked. When Jason's figure appeared in my sight, I walked up to him. I forced myself to smile. Would you like to be my boyfriend? I fell in love with you at first sight. 7. After that, I became Jason's extremely obedient girlfriend, doing everything I could to please him. His friends called me sister-in-law to my face, but behind my back, they called me a lapdog. Even though I knew it, I never cared. I carefully kept these things from Hannah, but she still found out. We had the most intense argument since we met. That guy is a jerk, and you still spoil him like that. I don't like the way you're so obsessed with him. Don't you have any dignity? I looked into her eyes and said word by word, Hannah, I can live without dignity, but you can't. Promise me that you won't cause trouble for him and that you won't meet him. Give me another week, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. I packed my things and went back to my small apartment in the city center, looking at the message from Jason on my phone. Baby, my mom has agreed to meet you. You have to prepare well and don't make her dislike you. I picked up my bag and went to the mall. I picked a jade bracelet with good transparency and asked the salesperson to wrap it up. Of course, I had to prepare well. I took a photo and sent it to Jason. Didn't you say that your aunt has a family heirloom bracelet? Then I'll exchange this one with your aunt. She should like it, right? He replied immediately. Of course, baby, you're so thoughtful. 8. Jason's family lived in a bungalow in the east of The city, near the suburbs, I turned a blind eye to the old-fashioned facilities indoors and obediently placed the fruits, cigarettes, and alcohol on the ground. Jason's mother had high cheekbones and mean-looking eyebrows and eyes. It was truly the case that one's appearance reflected one's character at this moment. She was smiling amiably, but it made me feel nauseous because I knew her true nature. She put the fake bracelet that she had prepared earlier on my hand. Yvonne, I liked you the moment I saw you. This bracelet is our family heirloom, and I'm giving it to you. After saying that, she stared intently at the small bag on my hand. I sensibly took out the jewelry box inside, opened it, and handed it to her. Auntie, this is for you. Do you like it? Yes, I like it so much. This is definitely not a fake from a street stall. She quickly covered her mouth and looked at me nervously. I just pretended not to hear. My phone rang at the right moment, and I pretended to answer it. Doctor, what's wrong? Has my younger brother been admitted to the ICU again? Do I need to pay the medical fees again? Jason looked at me in confusion. Baby, didn't you say you were an orphan? I looked at him with teary eyes. I was originally, but I reunited with my younger brother some time ago. Under his disdainful gaze, I continued, my younger brother has leukemia, and I'm going to sell my house to treat his illness. Before Jason could speak, his mother shrieked, What? You're going to sell your house to treat your brother's illness? You're such a woman who sacrifices everything for her brother. Break up, break up. Our Jason doesn't want you anymore. She pushed me, wanting me to leave quickly, but she didn't mention exchanging the bracelet back at all. I was secretly delighted. On the surface, I looked at Jason sadly, hoping that he would speak up for me, but he turned his head and avoided my gaze. I left, looking back every few steps. 9. The moment the door closed, I finally let out a sigh of relief. It was great. I finally got the bracelet. I couldn't wait to take out an eyebrow trimmer and made up my mind to cut my finger. Seeing the blood beads well up, I quickly placed my finger on the stone bracelet, trying not to waste a single drop of blood. A strange scene appeared. The bracelet absorbed all the blood from my fingertip and turned into a small red mole that grew on the wound of my fingertip. I stroked the small mole, and the scene in front of me reversed. What I saw in front of me was no longer my small room. Instead, it was a vast expanse of black soil, with several streams of different thicknesses crisscrossing through it. It was so great, the uneasiness in my heart was completely dispelled by what I saw in front of me. My legs went weak, and I knelt down on the ground. I was really afraid that it was just a joke, or that this wasn't the bracelet. Then all my efforts in the past few years would be in vain. Fortunately, the truth told me that I had won the bet. I could take Hannah and survive the upcoming zombie crisis. We could live cleanly. 10. I giggled and dialed Hannah's number. Hannah, I'm waiting for you at home. It didn't take long before I heard the sound of the door opening. Hannah looked at my silly expression and rubbed the goosebumps on her arm vigorously. Yvonne, please be normal. Okay, what did you get today? I just giggled and didn't refute. Dear Hannah, you're right. I got a huge shock. Hearing this, Hannah opened her phone. I saw her scroll to the contact list, the attending doctor of her father. I quickly pounced on her and snatched the phone away. Then I raised my hand higher, letting her see with her own eyes that her phone disappeared in my hand, then appeared, disappeared again, and then appeared again. Well, now she was also stunned. After a lot of explanation and dragging her into the space to take a few rounds, she swallowed hard and asked me in a hoarse voice, So, you're saying that you fawned over that jerk just for this? Of course, even if I were blind, I wouldn't like him. She raised her fist and hit me. Then why didn't you tell me? You made me so worried. How dare I tell her, even though she didn't have the memories of the past life. I didn't want her to get close to that disgusting man for a single second. When we were young, she protected me, saving me from being bullied, ensuring that I had food to eat, clothes to wear, and books to read. Now it was finally my turn to protect her. I pretended to be relaxed and wagged a finger. Rich girl Hannah, being a heartbreaker is your destiny. The job of being a lapdog is not something you can do. Hannah pouted. I still think this thing is a bit useless. It doesn't deserve you spending so much time on it. At most, it can be used as a portable suitcase when traveling. Then I remembered that there was something more important that I hadn't told her. But the zombie outbreak will happen in 2 months, and then it will be very useful. Hannah's mouth opened wide in an O shape, and she touched my forehead. You don't have a fever. Are you serious? A zombie crisis? That's too fantastical, isn't it? I pointed to the moist ground at my feet. So you don't think this portable space is fantastical, dear? No. It's time for us to start stockpiling supplies. 11. We spent the whole night browsing through posts, those doomsday novels, doomsday speculations, and doomsday stockpiling guides on the internet. As long as they were popular, we read them all and summarized them. We came up with a long list: planting category, seeds of various fruits, vegetables, and fruit trees, as well as trees that grow fast and are suitable for use as firewood, seasonings such as scallions, ginger, garlic, and Chinese prickly ash, common Chinese herbal medicines such as isatis root, honeysuckle, wolfberries, pseudoginseng, ginseng, etc., all kinds of flowers, even in the apocalypse. We need some things to liven up our lives. What's more, anything can grow in the space, which is perfect for a plant killer like me. Breeding category: chickens, ducks, pigs, cows, rabbits, fish, and shrimp are the most basic. Some daily necessities such as solar chargers, flashlights, batteries of various models, sanitary napkins, toiletries, skincare products, rice, flour, cooking oil, frozen food, frozen meat, a wide variety of snacks, medicines, barreled water, etc. All kinds of books, movies, TV dramas, variety shows, and other cultural and entertainment works. There were also some knives, crossbows, bulletproof vests, etc., that could only be bought through special channels. As soon as we got them, we put them into the space and hid them. We also stocked up several large boxes, as big as shipping containers, of clothes for all seasons. We modified several cars and stocked up enough gasoline, just in case. She also hired someone to add an extra layer of enclosure around the villa. A basement was dug, and there were 3 passages for entering and exiting it. The basement was divided into 6 or 7 rooms. One of them served as our resting place at night. A large room was turned into a cold storage to store all kinds of frozen meat. There were 2 other rooms. She didn't say what they were for, but I guess they were reserved for her father and mother. As for the others, she said it wasn't expensive, so it was better to dig more and leave them available. Well, I'll try my best to understand the thoughts of a wealthy woman. All the doors in the villa were also upgraded. It was really a generous move. Finally, she even built 2 watchtowers that we had jokingly mentioned before. Now the villa really looks like a castle. I reminded her again that we might as well dig up all the fruits and vegetables in the yard and change it back into a flower bed. In the apocalyptic world, if there is a yard with strict security measures, if it is full of fruits and vegetables, there will surely be many people who want to break through the security and get in. But if it is planted with some useless flowers, basically no one will have such thoughts. To put it bluntly, it is to confuse those survivors. Although the 2 layers of 6-meter-high enclosures now block the yard tightly, we also need to guard against the possibility of someone using drones or something similar for detection. As for my small flat in the city center, Hannah asked me if I wanted to sell it at a low price in advance. I smiled cunningly. Don't worry, I've already figured out how to deal with it. Jason has been eyeing that house for a long time. Of course, I have to leave it for my dear boyfriend. In my past life, Jason had always lived in a bungalow in the east of the city. The population there was sparse, so he was able to escape the most dangerous situation in the early days. After that, relying on the continuous output of food from the space his mother had, he organized a large number of people and safely reached the villa in the suburbs. Now, he is going to live in the most densely populated area of the city. I wonder if he can still stay safe. 12. Hannah rented several long empty factory buildings in a village outside the city. This is an industrial town with many factory buildings. It is very normal for trucks to come in and out. In order to keep it secret, she didn't use her family's connections. Instead, she was afraid that she didn't have enough money, so she came up with various pretexts to take out all the money she had saved in the family. I asked her how much money she had, and the wealthy woman replied, an amount that can't be used up in a month no matter how you spend it. I searched for the contact information of various suppliers on the internet and placed orders for truckloads of goods. Then I put the items into the space in the enclosed warehouse. With the help of money, it only took us 5 days to stockpile enough daily necessities for the 2 of us to use for 50 years. In addition, the space can continuously produce more supplies, even if we live to be 150-year-old monsters. We don't have to worry about running out of food. After ensuring the most basic necessities, we quickly retreated and moved to the factory building in the neighboring town, which was filled with various fruit trees and flowers we had purchased. With a long sigh, we resigned ourselves to putting all the items into the warehouse and then started planting them on the planned land. When the alarm clock rang to remind us to take a rest, we had only planted about half of them. Hannah and I sat on the ground. I raised my hand and pointed into the distance. Empress, look, this is the country I've conquered for you. Hannah got into the role immediately and smiled shyly. Your servant thanks your majesty. 13. When we came out of the space after having enough rest, my phone kept ringing. When I opened it, I saw that they were all call reminders from Jason. Hannah snatched the phone and was about to block him, but I quickly stopped her. Okay, don't be angry. I kept his contact information because I want to play a trick on him. I called him back, and he picked up immediately. Then an overbearing tone came from the phone. Yvonne, you're really something. You actually dared not to answer my call. What do you mean? I patiently coaxed him. Dear, I didn't mean to. I've been busy selling the house, you know. Humph, I'm here to buy the house from you. It's a one-time offer of 2 million. You go and handle the transfer with me tomorrow. I wanted to laugh in my Heart, it's a school district house worth more than 5 million. He's really bargaining like using a dragon-slaying knife, but I don't care either. My goal isn't to get money. I want his life. If he really can't even afford 2 million, I'll find a way to give him the house. Dear, I agree, but you have to give me your house in the east of the city. Otherwise, my brother and I will have nowhere to live. Jason's voice was filled with ecstasy. TSK, I hope he can still be happy after the zombie outbreak. Are you really willing? That's a school district house, which is in short supply. Of course I'm serious. How can a school district house be more important than my feelings for you? Jason left a message, then see you at the Housing Administration Bureau tomorrow, and hung up the phone in a hurry. 14. The next day, at the entrance of the Housing Administration Bureau, I saw Jason and his mother with huge dark circles under their eyes. They must have been borrowing money all night, right? What I really didn't expect was that the first thing Jason said when he saw me was, Yvonne, I asked an expert on the internet to appraise the bracelet my mom gave you. It's worth at least 200,000 or 300,000. Let's deduct that money from the house price. I almost laughed out of anger. The bracelet is indeed precious, and it can even be said to be priceless, but Jason himself told me that he bought it from a street stall. I pretended to be in a dilemma for a while. Dear, I can return the bracelet, but I pointed to the jade bracelet on his mother's hand, and the two of them fell silent. All right, I don't want that broken bracelet. Let's sign the contract quickly. 15. Jason held the newly issued property ownership certificate and couldn't stop smiling. When he saw that I was about to leave, he stopped me in a condescending manner. My mom rarely comes to the city center. You treat her to a meal to make her feel better, I sneered. Did he still want to extort a meal from me? No, thanks. I'm afraid I'll be in a bad mood after the meal. I ignored the two stunned people and turned around and left. On the way back to the factory building by car, I casually hired a construction team. I asked them to remove all the anti-theft windows and doors of the bungalow in the east of the city. The old house is of no use to me, but to prevent them from thinking of running back to the east of the city after the zombie outbreak, I still need to make plans in advance. I hummed a tune. As soon as I arrived at the factory building, I turned on the pinhole camera installed in the small flat in the city center. Sure enough, I saw that the mother and son had already gone in and were pointing around. Fortunately, I had moved all the facilities in the house clean, not even leaving the curtains in the faucet. Of course, the most important thing was that I had already put the refrigerator and all the edible things into the space. I didn't even leave a single scallion or chive planted on the balcony, to be honest, if it weren't too troublesome. I would even scrape off the wall paint for them. 16. Hannah and I assembled all the materials we had bought in the space. The space was now divided into sections by the assembled fences. The animals we raised had all been put into the pens, so we didn't have to worry about them trampling on the flowers and plants in the space. We also assembled a simple house and put all kinds of furniture in it. If there is an unexpected situation, we can also live in it. We have prepared everything in terms of materials. Now there is still 1 month left before the apocalypse breaks out. It's time to deal with the emotional issues. Hannah picked up her father from the mental hospital and arranged him in the basement. The door of the room was closed tightly, leaving only a small window to observe the inside. Her parents' marriage was an arranged one, and they didn't have much emotional foundation. Her father had an affair with his secretary when he was young. After it was discovered, her mother took the opportunity to divorce and went abroad to look for her first love. After his wife left, her father realized that he had fallen in love with her. He began to imagine that she was still by his side, and in the end, he actually drove himself crazy. It's really quite bizarre. Hannah had always disliked him, but she would still visit him occasionally. Although she had already reserved rooms for her parents in the basement, she still couldn't make up her mind. It was only after I persuaded her that she agreed to bring him back. Although she hated him, I knew that Hannah still couldn't bear to watch him die. After settling her father down, Hannah dialed a phone call across the ocean. A clear and gentle female voice came from the receiver. Hello, who is this? Hannah's eyes were numb with a hint of struggle. She hadn't contacted her mother for nearly 20 years. It's Hannah. Hannah, it's you. You finally called me. Mom misses you so much. Hannah coughed twice. Since you miss me, bring Uncle and come to see me. I'm going to die soon and don't have much time left. After saying that, she hung up the phone before the other side could reply, turned on the do not disturb mode on her phone, picked up the inventory list, and started counting the supplies again. But the inventory list had already been counted several times. I let out a long sigh. Fortunately, I'm an orphan. 17. On the morning of July 18th, 2026, there was 1 day left before the zombie outbreak. The villa was empty and quiet. Outside the French windows, the automatic irrigation system was watering the various flowers outside the house. Each drop of water that fell was reflected by the sunlight, showing a beautiful light golden color. Everything looked peaceful and beautiful. None of us spoke. We sat with our knees hugged, quietly enjoying this moment of beauty. There were still 10 minutes left before the first zombie video would appear on the internet. It was a college student who, while shopping and having fun, Found someone pretending to be a zombie. She was a big fan of The Walking Dead and thought that the makeup and acting skills of this zombie were amazing. She immediately stepped forward and patted his shoulder, wanting to have a conversation with him. She also asked her friend to film the process from a distance, wanting to post it online to gain some popularity. The video was indeed filmed and became the most popular video on the internet. The price, however, was her life. As soon as her hand touched the other person's shoulder, that person suddenly stopped shaking and twitching. He turned around blankly and stared at her with his pale eyes. She was just about to ask what brand of colored contact lenses he was wearing, as they were so realistic, but she was bitten on the neck by the zombie, and blood spattered everywhere for a moment. The roar like that of a wild beast resounded through the street. The crowd scattered, screaming. But there were still some bold people who gathered to watch and even praised the girl. The acting is really good. It looks just like the real thing. It wasn't until a few minutes later that the girl also started twitching and shaking. The black in her eyes was replaced by gray and white, and she pounced on the crowd together with that man. 19. There were faint screams and cries coming from a distance outside the house, because the sound insulation of the villa was so good, it wasn't clear. Hannah turned on the surveillance camera outside the courtyard wall, but she saw a hideous face covered in blood and flesh flash past the camera lens. Staggering and running after a middle-aged woman in front, I recognized both of these people. One was the community security guard, and the other was the caregiver of the grandmother in the next building. Seeing that the woman was about to be cut up and she couldn't run back to the next building, she started crying and pounding on our courtyard gate. "Miss Hang, open the door, save me." I turned to look at Hannah and caught a trace of pity in her eyes. She picked up her phone and wanted to remotely control the door to open, but in the end, she dejectedly put it down. It didn't take long for the caregiver to be cut up. Her crying and begging turned into abuse. "You two little bitches in the house, you're just watching me die. You're harming people. I curse you to die a horrible death." The zombie took a bite on her neck, and she couldn't speak anymore. She gasped and closed her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, her eyes were already gray. Hannah's eyes were full of pain and struggled. She wasn't the Hannah from the past life who had become extremely cold and indifferent after being betrayed and deceived by blood. I held her hand. "Hannah, you're not wrong. She cursed us just because we chose to protect ourselves. How can such a person be grateful? If we save her, we'll probably be in constant trouble." Hannah thought for a while. "You're right. What if she refuses to leave and even threatens us to give her food? Otherwise, she'll open the courtyard gate and let the zombies in." Although she said so, her expression was still very heavy. I wanted to distract her, so I picked up my phone and cast the screen to the TV. "How about I show you something to make you happy?" 20. The small flat in the city center appeared on the screen. Now there was some old furniture in it, and it was no longer empty. It seemed that they really spent all their savings on buying this house, as they even moved all the old things from the house in the east of the city here. I divided the screen into several parts and checked all the rooms in the house. I didn't see any food stored there. As for the refrigerator, it was still that shabby small refrigerator. I wonder how much it can hold. And I remembered Jason once criticized me through his mother because he thought I spent money recklessly. "Yvonne, you're just too extravagant. You're not like my mother, who is so thrifty. She always goes to the vegetable market in the evening to buy the most cost-effective things." Thinking about it, his mother hasn't bought today's groceries yet. I looked at the two of them sleeping soundly. I found it a bit funny. I could even hear the screams and pleas for mercy outside the house through the surveillance camera. How could they still sleep? They really have a big heart. I picked up my phone and dialed the number. It rang 3 times before Jason answered. "Yvonne, you're such a woman who sacrifices everything for her brother. Don't pester me. We've already broken up. Do you understand?" There was a cold sneer on my lips. "Dear, why do you think so of me? I just called to remind you out of concern for your safety. Didn't you hear any strange sounds?" I hung up the phone and saw Jason walking to the window following the roars of the zombies and the screams of passersby. After just looking for a while, he was so scared that his legs went weak and he fell to the ground. He frantically crawled back to the bed and picked up his phone. "Baby, what's going on outside?" It's nothing much. There's just a zombie outbreak. They will bite people to death, and those who are bitten will also turn into zombies." My voice was full of worry. "Dear, you and Auntie must never go out. If you're caught, you'll also turn into zombies. That would be terrifying." At the beginning, the zombies didn't move very quickly, but later they became more and more agile. "I must dispel the idea of the two of them going out to stockpile food now," I continued. "Dear, I replaced the main door with the latest model some time ago. It will definitely be able to block the zombies." It was indeed the latest model. I picked the latest model that was a cheap one and installed it. When the installation master removed the door that I bought for tens of thousands of yuan and replaced it with this door that cost less than 1,000 yuan, he thought I was crazy. "Just stay at home and wait with peace of mind. The country will definitely come to the rescue. Don't go out and seek death." Next, I watched as he tremblingly woke up his mother, and the two of them took out the few supplies they had and started counting them. TSK, is that all? It will be very difficult for them to last even 5 days, seeing that the two of them really had no intention of going out, and instead moved the sofa, table, and chairs to block the main door. I put aside my phone and stopped paying attention. 21. On the third day of the apocalypse, Hannah and I put on our boots, arm guards, bulletproof vests, helmets, and goggles, and went out fully armed. The later it gets in the apocalypse, the more powerful the zombies become. After discussing, we decided to clear out the zombies in the community. In our past life, we didn't go out until 2 months later when there wasn't much food left at home after staying in the villa. By then, the zombies were already very difficult to deal with. It took us about a month, on and off, to clear out the zombies in the community. There are a total of 12 buildings in this community, and only 4 households have moved in since Hannah lives alone. The security system in her house is of the highest level. The security of the other 3 households is also good, and they have hired security guards and nannies additionally. It was very convenient in normal times, but in a situation like this, it's not a good thing. More people mean a higher probability of zombies appearing in the house. After we cleared out the community in our past life, we sadly found that there were only the 2 of us left alive in the entire community. When we just finished clearing out the community, there were foods moved from each house and various fruit trees in the community. At most, we couldn't eat meat, but we wouldn't starve to death either. However, later, Jason and his mother came here under the protection of many people, relying on the large number of people. They forced us. I shook my head, not wanting to recall those unpleasant memories. I can't be distracted when fighting the zombies. The zombies now are indeed much easier to deal with than those 2 months later. Hannah and I cleared out 2 buildings in one go. Seeing the sun gradually setting in the west, we went back to rest. With the circulating water purification system and the continuous stream of water in the space, we didn't save too much and took a comfortable hot bath. 22. On the 5th day, we cleared out all the zombies in the community. We took action earlier in this life. At this time, there are still 2 households in the community with people in them. When they saw Hannah and me, they desperately waved and called for us to give them some food. We just pretended not to hear it anyway. We were dressed very tightly, and every time we went back, we only entered through the courtyard gate of an empty house next to us that couldn't be observed. Moreover, the community has been cleared out by us. If they still don't dare to go out to find food, then they deserve to starve to death. After all, several adults can't expect us to raise them like chickens and ducks. Right, we went back to the space, sowed some vegetable seeds, fed the chickens and ducks, and hoed several mow of land, preparing to plant more things. We felt that today's amount of exercise was enough, so we came out of the space and nestled on the sofa. Hannah was very bored. Yvonne, do you want to find a movie to watch? I opened my phone and waved it. Then you watch first. I have to torture the scumbag first. Hannah immediately became excited. Cast the screen, cast the screen. I also want to watch the scumbag being tortured. This is much more interesting than a movie. 23. In the surveillance footage, that mother and son who had never quarreled actually started arguing. Jason roared loudly, "It's all your fault. You only know how to save a few cents every day. If you had gone out to buy food that morning, we wouldn't have so little food now." Oh, he has 2 different attitudes. In the past, he always said that his mother was thrifty and knew how to save money, and told me to learn from her. Jason's mother shrank her body, her arms were full of bruises, and she tried to defend herself. If mom didn't save like this, where would we get the money to buy a house? Jason casually picked up something and smashed it to pieces. How dare you say that? Look, who wants this house now? He covered his face with a dejected expression. It's better than our house in the East District. Jack told me that there are fewer people there, and there are also fewer zombies. Alas, it would be great if we hadn't changed houses. Jason's mother's eyes lit up. That's right, you call that little bitch. Tell her that we don't want this house anymore. She has a car, doesn't she? Ask her to bring some food and drive to pick us up. I was just thinking about which unlucky person would drive out to pick them up at this time. Then I heard my phone ring. I answered the phone. Baby, I've decided not to break up with you. Hurry up and come to pick us up and take us to the East District. Bring some food too. I've been hungry for a day. Jason's words, which he took for granted, were played out through the phone speaker. Seeing Hannah puffing out her cheeks, as angry as a pufferfish, I poked her amusingly with my finger. Okay, my brother has a modified SUV. It's just right to drive it over to pick you up. I'll also bring you some delicious food. You must wait for me at home. I pressed the phone off and threw it aside casually. Hannah let out a sound. Are you really going to pick them up? Of course, but I didn't promise when I would set out. Maybe in 30 or 50 years. 24. On the 10th day of the zombie crisis outbreak, in 20 minutes, the entire electricity supply in Highshire will collapse. Along with it, the network and phones will no longer be usable. I timed it and made the last video call to Jason. Damn it, Yvonne, you bitch, are you lying to me? It's a road that takes a little over an hour. It's been 5 days, and you still haven't arrived, Jason pointed at the phone screen and vented his anger loudly. Then, like someone with schizophrenia, he apologized to me repeatedly. Baby, I'm sorry. I haven't eaten for 3 days. There's no water to drink at home either. I'm so hungry and thirsty, that's why I lost my temper with you. Don't be angry with me. You're almost here, right? He still held a slim hope that I wasn't lying to him and that I was really coming soon. Jason, really? It's true that you're hungry, but how can you be thirsty? Isn't your mother's blood not enough to quench your thirst? Jason visibly panicked. What are you talking about? Don't talk nonsense. TSK, the woman who pushed Hannah and me into the group of zombies in order to avenge her son in our past life, she never expected that her dear son would treat her like this, right? He actually regarded her as a reserve food source. He hasn't touched her body yet just because he's not hungry enough. Haha, Jason, you look so despicable like this, as humble as a dog. Also, I'm just lying to you. I have no intention of picking you up at all, not just this matter. When I said I liked you and insisted on being with you, that was also a lie. In fact, I really dislike you. Tell me, in which relationship for 3 years would the boyfriend not even be able to touch a single finger of the girlfriend? I said I was religious and couldn't have physical contact with men before marriage. And you actually believed it. You're so stupid, Jason obviously didn't want to believe it. You're lying to me. What do you want? You dislike me. Don't deny it. Come and pick me up quickly. If you come to pick me up, I'm willing to marry you. Okay, I felt like vomiting. How could someone be so shameless? Of course, I want that bracelet your mother gave me. You didn't know, did you? After dripping blood to recognize the master of that bracelet, it can open up a space. There is land, sunlight, and water source in it. I've stocked it full of things. TSK, I really have to thank you. A bracelet that cost less than 50,000 yuan allowed me to exchange for such a great treasure. I took out 2 ice cream cones out of thin air, gave one to Hannah, and slowly started eating mine. Jason was shocked and murmured, "It's impossible. It's fake. It's all fake." I waved the ice cream cone that appeared out of thin air in my hand. Tisk, that's what cowards are like. When something happens, they first deceive themselves. I was too lazy to pay attention to his self-deceiving words, seeing that there were only 5 minutes left before the network would be disconnected. No, why does the phone still have battery? The sound of me singing spread further and further in the empty corridor, causing bursts of echoes. Jason frantically searched for the source of the sound. When he rushed towards the door like a madman, the zombies on the upper and lower floors had already come hearing the sound. The inferior anti-theft door that I specifically replaced couldn't withstand the impact of the zombies. A few times, before the screen went off, I saw 3 or 5 zombies knock Jason down to the ground. He struggled desperately with his arm, from which several large pieces of flesh had been bitten off, but in the end, it was all in vain. He could only painfully endure the continuous biting of the zombies until he became a skeleton. 25. Finally, things came to an end. The pleasure of avenging my great hatred made me excited for a while, and then I returned to the daily pastoral life. The villa surrounded by a double-layered enclosure gives a great sense of security. Hannah and I even had the leisure to pick flowers in the yard and put them in vases. Occasionally, some zombies would wander into the community, and we would quickly deal with them, although we haven't seen anyone in the community asking for help anymore. The fruits on the fruit trees in the community are constantly decreasing every day. We would also sit on the swing chair in the yard holding our radio, listening to it while basking in the sun. We heard that the country started to build safe zones at a rate of 1 per year, and more people were rescued. Although we have no intention of going there, we are still genuinely happy to hear these news. Until today, we heard that the 10th safe zone was established. We were each holding half a watermelon and scooping it up happily. Hannah sighed. In the blink of an eye, it's been 10 years. I was about to reply when I heard the joyful voice of the announcer on the radio. With the continuous efforts of the scientific researchers, the initial vaccine has been successfully developed, and volunteers are now being recruited. As soon as the words fell, cheers suddenly came from a house not far away that we thought had been empty for a long time. While Hannah was still in a daze, I quickly scooped away the heart of her watermelon. Today's watermelon is especially sweet. Story 2, global high temperatures have killed many people. My family managed to avoid the disaster because we had taken precautions in advance. We also gave assistance to my aunt's family who were in trouble, but once they arrived, they not only occupied the whole house, they also swaggeringly enjoyed the supplies we had stockpiled. They devised a plan to lock my parents and me on the sweltering balcony and watched gleefully as we were roasted to death. They pulled off our skin and bones to use as food for the dog to gnaw on, and used the meat on our bodies as new supplies. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day when I went to my aunt's house to ask for help. This time, it's their turn to taste what it's like to be roasted. One, don't, please, don't, I shouted out in horror, trying to stop all of this on the sweltering balcony, with the scorching sun shining down, not to mention that the global high temperature has already exceeded 50 degrees. I watched tremblingly as my family was gradually charred by the high temperature on the balcony. My parents, who were originally high-ranking officials in the Meteorological Bureau, had already received the news that the end of the world was approaching, so they kindly called our relatives to inform them, but unexpectedly, it was like inviting a wolf into the house. They didn't believe it at first. When the end of the world really came, they came to us for relief, but once they arrived, they not only occupied the whole house, they also swaggeringly enjoyed the supplies we had stockpiled inside the balcony. My aunt's family was sitting with their legs crossed, watching TV while enjoying the air conditioning, while we were sweating profusely, with sweat pouring down from our foreheads like raindrops. Our bodies were losing water little by little, and our skin started to crack. Until the moment I lost consciousness, I swore that if I had another life, I would make them pay back 1,000-fold. I suddenly opened my eyes, sat up, covered in cold sweat, and found myself lying on a soft bed, looking at the familiar surroundings. My pupils dilated and I was stunned. I quickly picked up my phone and opened the news, seeing the pushed warning. Recently, high temperatures have swept the world, and heatstroke is frequent. Please try to reduce going out. At first, no one paid attention to this disaster. First, there was an abnormal high temperature that lasted for several weeks, with the highest temperature exceeding 50 degrees. We originally thought it was just an ordinary high temperature, but little did we know that this was just the beginning of the end of the world. Before long, the rivers dried up, the farmland failed to yield crops, and food and fresh water began to be in short supply. The real end of the world had arrived. For the last bit of resources, people began to kill each other, engage in endless disputes, and even the tragic scene of cannibalism occurred. May 28th, 3024, I murmured in a low voice, my voice involuntarily trembling. Am I back to the past this time? I want to protect my parents well and prevent our family from falling into that tragic ending again. A hint of determination flashed in my eyes. I didn't even have time to put on my shoes and rushed downstairs in a hurry. Dad, Mom, before I could shout out, I saw my parents sitting on the sofa with serious expressions, making a phone call. My father's eyebrows were furrowed, and my mother had a worried look on her face. They made a gesture for me to wait a moment. I stared intently at their phones. In my previous life, it was this phone call that led our family to that result. Could it be that I still can't stop it in this life? At this moment, I took an action. I strode forward, snatched my parents' phones directly, and smashed them hard on the ground. I looked up firmly at my parents, who were looking at me in surprise. I know you must have a lot of questions. All I can say is that you must trust me. What I'm going to say next may seem a bit absurd, I explained in a flustered voice. Suddenly, my parents burst out laughing. They stood up and hugged me together. It's so great that our family is reunited again. Suddenly, my blood froze, and my heart started pounding wildly. You also remember the previous life, I said tremblingly, looking at my parents nodding. At that moment, I couldn't pretend to be strong anymore, and tears welled up in my eyes. I threw myself into my parents' arms and burst into tears like a child. This isn't the time to cry. I've just called your aunt's family as usual. In this life, not only do we want them to die, but we also want them to taste our pain, my father said through gritted teeth. My mother stroked my head, as if to comfort me. At this moment, suddenly, something golden flashed before my eyes. I rubbed my eyes and found that I could see the same number on my father's and mother's heads. 288 hours, which is 12 days later. Calculating it, it's the day when we were driven to the balcony after our home was invaded in the previous life. Could it be that I can see everyone's lifespan, too? I suppressed the excitement in my heart. With this special ability, I can foresee the future and better protect the lives of our family. However, for now, we first need to consider how to survive the high-temperature apocalypse in more than 10 days. Money isn't a problem at the moment. My parents are both senior executives in the Meteorological Bureau, so naturally, we don't lack money. But when the end of the world comes, global supplies will be in short supply, and money will just be a piece of waste paper. First of all, we need to choose an appropriate place and quickly build an apocalypse-safe house for us as a shelter to survive. There are too many people in the villa area where we live now, and my uncle's family also knows our address. There are too many uncertain factors in the apocalypse. The most unpredictable thing is people's hearts. In the face of disaster, all aspects of human nature become extremely fragile. After all, in the previous life, our whole family didn't die from the high temperature or hunger, but died at the hands of my aunt's family because of our kindness. After careful consideration, we chose a Warehouse on the outskirts of the city is the location of our safe house. This warehouse is located in a remote area, far from the residential area, surrounded by mountains. The terrain is conducive to cooling to a certain extent. The warehouse comes with an underground garage. Although it's 50 degrees above ground, the temperature in the basement is probably only about 20 degrees. It's simply a huge natural refrigerator and can store the food we purchase. Overall, I'm very satisfied with this location. I immediately dialed the landlord's phone number. The landlord seemed very surprised and didn't understand why someone would want to rent a warehouse to do business in such high temperature weather. I directly took out the banknotes from my card and paid the rent together with the deposit. The landlord on the other end of the phone laughed out loud. He was afraid that I would go back on my word and quickly threw the key to me. Then I contacted the top decoration company and paid extra money to urge them to help me build a house that can prevent explosions and break-ins, and maintain a constant temperature and insulation. We replaced the warehouse door with a bank-level safe door lock to ensure that it's strong enough. In addition, we also equipped the warehouse with an independent fresh water filtration system and power system, since there is a natural small river a few hundred meters behind the warehouse. This can ensure our drinking water supply. However, once the end of the world really comes, the global power system will collapse. To prevent potential problems, we installed a large number of solar panels on the roof. We also designed the highest level defense system for the shelter outside the warehouse. We built a high wall and connected it to the power grid. Anyone who dares to break in will be electrocuted. We have to do this. We can't take any chances, because once someone breaks in, all our supplies will be stolen. In the courtyard, we also hid many traps, all just to protect the lives of our family. In addition, relying on his connections in the Meteorological Bureau, my father managed to obtain a series of weapons such as guns, binoculars, axes, etc., to facilitate observing the situation outside. I also bought several drones. In the apocalypse, weapons are important, but supplies are equally important. My mother was in charge of the procurement work in this regard. She made a list of foods that can be stored for a long time, because in high temperature weather, it will be very difficult to store fresh vegetables and fruits. She directly bought hundreds of boxes of military compressed biscuits, as well as some high-energy chocolate bars, instant noodles, loasafen, stinky noodles, self-heating hot pots, various canned foods, etc. Although the natural temperature in the basement is relatively low compared to other places, it's still not ideal for storing food. So we bought 5 large refrigerators and placed them in the basement. In addition, we also bought a large amount of fresh meat and vegetables and filled the refrigerators to the brim. In the afternoon, I went to the local seed market and bought more than a dozen sacks of seeds, mainly vegetable seeds. If we want to eat fresh vegetables for a long time after the apocalypse, self-sufficiency is essential. Finally, there's the issue of water. Relying solely on the water filtered from the small river behind the warehouse is far from enough. In high temperatures, the river is very likely to dry up. For this reason, we wholesale dozens of trucks of mineral water. Even if the riverbed dries up completely, we won't be short of water. As we prepared the supplies little by little and built this shelter, I not only found that the numbers on the heads of most people around me would not exceed 60 days, but I didn't tell them. In the apocalypse, people are selfish. I can only guarantee that I won't hurt others, but I can't guarantee that after I tell them the news, they won't have some bad intentions towards me. We have learned enough lessons in the previous life. In this life, I just want to keep our family safe and peaceful, and I was surprised to find that the number on my parents' heads was getting longer and longer as time went by. Now it has reached 360 hours, which is 15 days. I stared at that number thoughtfully. This probably means that we will encounter another danger in 15 days. What kind of danger will it be? 3. After doing all of this, of course, we haven't forgotten my uncle and aunt who will come in a few days. Naturally, we will entertain them well. We specifically bought some supplies so that they can eat and drink well when they move in. Of course, we also provided them with a unique heating system. In the scorching summer, who wouldn't want to enjoy the warm air? My parents and I were prepared 24 hours a day. Now, when we finally lie in our exclusive apocalypse shelter, everything else becomes unimportant. Sure enough, soon, the high temperature apocalypse swept the world. Temperatures below 50 degrees became a luxury. When the riverbed dried up and the farmland failed to produce any crops, people finally realized that this disaster had arrived. At this moment, all the things in the supermarket were looted, and no one replenished the goods anymore. I leaned against the soft sofa, enjoying the air conditioning, closing my eyes. Those painful past events flashed through my mind like a movie. As long as our family is still together, there's no difficulty that can't be solved. At this time, my mother gently held my hand and pulled me back to reality from my memories. I took a deep breath and gradually relaxed my tense body. My mother was right. The most important thing now is that the 3 of us have a safe shelter and don't have to run around for food and clothing. No matter what happens outside the door, as long as we are together, there's nothing that can't be solved. I opened my eyes and watched as my father handed me the remote control and switched to the monitoring channel. Looking at the monitoring screen displayed on the TV, my uncle and their family were lingering at the door of my house, carrying big and small bags. Their faces were so familiar, as if I had seen them just yesterday. However, when I saw them, I didn't feel the slightest warmth of family affection. Instead, a surge of uncontrollable anger and hatred welled up in my heart. Unlike in the previous life, my grandparents' family also came this time. I sneered as I looked at the large group of people at my door. None of these people are good. They are all a bunch of robbers. But what would it be like for a group of robbers to live together? I'm really a bit looking forward to it. Before long, my parents' phones rang. "Dear daughter, where are you? Open the door for us quickly. We're almost dying of heat." A harsh, loud voice came from the phone, showing no restraint in its selfishness. They never thought that with so many people coming to our house, would their daughter starve to death? Yes, they have always favored sons over daughters and never considered my mother's feelings. They would only complain about why she didn't send money home again when my mother was in high school and worked hard on her own. They even wanted to sell her directly to an old man in the next village so that they could get a sum of money to help their precious son get married and have children. Thinking of all this, I clenched my fists in indignation. If I had the chance, I really wanted to torture these bloodsuckers to death. The hatred from the previous life is still vivid in my mind. The extremely painful appearance of our whole family before I close my eyes still often appears in front of me. If it weren't for them, how could our family have died? For you ungrateful wretch, now that you've become successful and have money, you can just ignore your parents and your younger brother. We really raised you in vain. I should have given you to that old man earlier. The tone in the phone changed from being humble at first to scolding impatiently. This is their true face. My parents looked at each other and, with a unified movement, directly hung up the phone. In the previous life, when they occupied our house and drove us to the balcony, making us gradually dehydrate due to the high temperature, our skin started to crack, and finally, when we were roasted alive, they never showed any affection due to our blood relationship. I ate snacks and watched the reactions of that group of people with a smile. Those bloodsuckers became furious when they found that their call was hung up, and their faces turned red. I couldn't help but mock them jokingly. Is that red face due to anger or the heat? It's really hilarious. My uncle and grandfather waved their arms and banged on the door of my house like madmen, shouting for us to open the door. "You bunch of bitches, open the door quickly. Our family is almost dying of heat." I watched as big beads of sweat rolled down from their foreheads. Their breathing became rapid due to dehydration, and I felt a sense of pleasure in my heart. What they are experiencing now is not even 1/10 of the pain we suffered. How could I let those people off so easily? A sharp glint flashed in my eyes. The good show is still to come. You can enjoy it slowly. Seeing that group of people were about to faint, I leisurely pressed the button in my hand. Whoosh! The door opened. That group of people thought we were scared, and they swaggered into the house. "All you bitches, get out here, hurry up and welcome us." My grandfather shouted loudly at the door, but there was no one in the house. I continued to watch them as if watching a play, slowly falling into the trap I had set. When the others saw that our family wasn't there, they started to wander around on their own, and that's when things got interesting. This house is really beautiful and big. I have to find a good room for my son to be his bedroom. My grandmother and grandfather wanted to live in my parents' room, but my aunt and uncle wanted their precious son to live in their own room. They argued heatedly about this matter, turning red in the face. For a moment, the sounds of mutual abuse filled the air. Sure enough, it's really interesting when selfish people get together. I looked at the scene on the surveillance screen in the TV with mockery. Suddenly, at that moment, my cousin suddenly found the food we had prepared. My little cousin's loud shout came from downstairs. "There's food, Mom and Dad. Come and eat." A shadow passed over my grandfather's and uncle's faces, revealing their extremely selfish nature completely, but a long-starved stomach overrides everything. I watched everything on the surveillance screen with mockery. This is just an appetizer, and more punishments are yet to come. It's time for this group of people to taste the pain we once suffered. 5. As soon as they ate the food, their expressions changed suddenly. The situation got out of control. I looked at the scene on the surveillance screen, wearing a triumphant smile among them. My cousin clutched his stomach, his face turned pale, and foam was coming out of his mouth. He gripped the tablecloth tightly with both hands and shouted in great pain, "What kind of garbage did you give us to eat?" Then, my aunt coughed continuously, and a terrifying bloodstain seeped through a piece of tissue. "There's a screw in my food," she shouted in horror. "What kind of evil thing did your family do? We're relatives." At this moment, my usually arrogant uncle could only stare with wide eyes and roar into the air. "Yes, this is the sumptuous meal I prepared to welcome them." I really scoff at the word relatives they mentioned. The more I hear this word, the more ridiculous it seems. What should we do? "Husband, our son is in so much pain." My aunt rolled around in pain while hugging her son tightly. Suddenly, my mother burst into wild laughter. A sense of pleasure welled up from the bottom of her heart, and the Grievances she had accumulated over more than 10 years were released in an instant. "Thank you, my dear daughter, for making me so happy." As she laughed, my mother suddenly burst into tears. "Your mother here has been fantasizing for more than 10 years. I worked hard to get into university, and now I've achieved some success, but I've never received the love of my parents," she choked up. "When I was a child, they wanted to sell me to someone else. When I grew up, they wanted to take the lives of our whole family. I'm sorry. In the previous life, it was my cowardice and ignorance that killed my husband and son." My mother covered her head and cried in pain, curling up on the ground. My father and I looked at each other, and immediately understood. We went up together and hugged her tightly in our arms. "Don't talk nonsense. It's all my fault. I didn't protect you and our son well," my father said with a choke in his voice, and his eyes were also slightly moist. I had never seen him lose his composure like this. The only other time was on that day when my uncle and the others ruthlessly drove our whole family to that narrow balcony. My father has never begged anyone in his life. The only time was when they drove my mother and me to the balcony. For the first time, I saw this powerful man, over 6 feet tall, kneel down in front of his relatives and kowtow hard, just to beg them to spare my mother and me. Unfortunately, in the end, our family of 3 still died on that scorching balcony. Remembering that nightmarish scene, a shadow flashed in my eyes. "No, it's not enough. We want them to pay double the price. Let's add some more spices for them." Thinking of this, a shadow flashed in my eyes again. "It's not enough. Not enough." 6. I turned off all the cold air systems in the house, leaving only one source of cold air in a small room. I want to see whether my aunt and uncle are more selfish than my grandparents. Sure enough, the moment I turned off the air conditioning system, I saw the temperature in the house start to rise slowly. They also seemed to realize something was wrong and began to search everywhere for the source of the cold air. Soon, they found the small room with the only remaining cold air. A glint flashed in my uncle's eyes. He stared fiercely at my grandparents and said harshly, "You old bastards, it's time for you to die. Don't waste this precious resource." My grandparents looked at the knife stabbed into their bodies and their fierce-looking son in disbelief. This was the son they had carefully raised for more than 30 years. One could even say he was the son nourished by sucking my mother's blood. Unexpectedly, he would treat them like this in return. I was watching this unparalleled drama when suddenly I found that the numbers on my mother's and father's heads were decreasing rapidly. Finally, their numbers stopped at 6 hours and 20 minutes. I suddenly knelt down on the ground, filled with anger in my heart. I'm not willing to accept this. Why? Even though we have already experienced the previous life, we still can't change the lives of my parents and me in this life. What on earth is going to happen later? At this moment, a most likely possibility flashed through my mind. I turned to look at the surveillance screen. It was empty, leaving only the scene of my grandparents lying on the ground. Where were my aunt and uncle? Could it be that their actions were just a show? I asked my parents anxiously. Why did they disappear suddenly? They seemed to say they were taking the child to the hospital and then disappeared from the surveillance screen. I shook my head. No, it shouldn't be like this. In this situation, there's no hospital to go to. There's only one possibility. All their actions just now were faked for us to see. I'm afraid their real purpose is to take this opportunity to get rid of my grandparents. Could it be that they were also reborn? 7. I quickly stood up and looked out the window in a hurry. What came into view was a lush green forest and towering mountains. It was silent, as if cut off from the rest of the world, and incredibly tranquil. I thought to myself that they should not be able to find this hidden place. After all, in the previous life, we had never set up such a safe apocalypse shelter. They should not be able to find this location. Dear daughter, what's wrong? My mother and father looked at me with a puzzled expression. I took a deep breath, stared into their eyes, and said slowly, Dad, Mom, I guess we're going to have a tough battle later because I can see people's lifespans. I see that there are only 6 hours left on your heads. I stared blankly out the window, let out a sigh, and then continued. If I'm not wrong, my aunt and uncle were also reborn. Since making this speculation about my aunt and uncle's behavior, I've been on high alert throughout. I've been staying by the window all the time so that I can observe the situation outside. My father, my mother, and I each had a pistol in hand. I also activated the highest defense level of the warehouse just in case. As night gradually fell, I watched as the time on my parents' heads became 2 hours. My heart was pounding so hard that it seemed to jump out of my chest. It was pouring heavily outside. This could be considered good news. It seemed that heaven hadn't completely abandoned us. I murmured to myself, it seems it will be cooler tomorrow. I listened to the sound of the rain hitting the leaves with a gloomy expression, but I also realized that after the temperature dropped, it might facilitate the actions of certain people, and the sound of the rain seemed to be able to cover up some noises. I stared intently at the numbers on my parents' heads. They were decreasing minute by minute until there were only 40 minutes left. Although I didn't see any suspicious signs in the dark night, I believe that there's a reason why heaven gave me this ability, since I was given this power. It must be for me to make good use of it. 8. Suddenly, there was a Rapid knock on the door outside the warehouse. At that moment, my heart jumped into my throat, and my whole body tensed up involuntarily. My mother's phone also rang, and the caller ID showed it was my aunt and uncle's number. I signaled my mother with my eyes to answer the phone. Ha ha ha, I'm here. Sister, can you do me a favor and give our family some relief? My uncle's sinister laughter came from the receiver after the call was connected. Where are you? My mother asked in a trembling voice. Of course, I'm in our home. Have you forgotten? We're family. Your home is my home. My uncle's words made my face darken, overlapping with the scene from the previous life. At this moment, I can be sure that their family was also reborn. I sneered and directly snatched my mother's phone. We remember everything you did to our family in the previous life. Since you're here, don't think about going back. My aunt's shrill voice came from the phone. I've been so good to your family. Don't be ungrateful. That what your mother is wearing was given by me. I suddenly understood. It turned out that they found our location through the bracelet on my mother's hand. I looked coldly at the bracelet on my mother's wrist. My mother heard this news in disbelief, and her voice was full of anger. This bracelet was clearly given to me by my mother. I thought she suddenly remembered my goodness, but I didn't expect it to eventually become a tool that harmed my daughter and husband. My mother was so angry that she grabbed the bracelet on her wrist, threw it hard on the ground. As if still not satisfied, she stomped on it a few more times. Stop talking nonsense. I want to see whether my dear brother is faster or my bullet is faster. My mother hung up the phone directly. My mother carried a gun and walked angrily straight to the window. She had already set up the gun and was ready to shoot. My father and I also started to get ready, observing the situation outside through the surveillance screen. Even if the worst outcome is to be forced to flee to the basement to take shelter, the basement is completely independent from the ground floor, so it should still be safe. Through the binoculars, I saw that my uncle seemed to be very cautious and circled around the area. It seems that our initial security defense measures were correct. The door adopted a bank-level defense, and the glass windows were bulletproof and explosion-proof. At first, my uncle tried to pry open the door but failed. He kicked the wall in a fit of rage. I immediately activated the high-voltage power grid mode, thinking that my uncle would be electrocuted until he foamed at the mouth, but I didn't expect that he was also reborn and became much more shrewd. It turned out that the shoes and all his clothes were made of insulating materials. He somehow moved a ladder and tried to climb over the wall to get in. I paced around the room anxiously. He must not be allowed to come in. My uncle has been the leader of the local hooligans since he was a child. In terms of fighting, the three of us are no match for him. This is exactly why we were roasted to death in the previous life. I was about to shoot to warn him. At this moment, his body was almost at the highest point of the wall and he could step and soon bang. I turned to look at my mother. She trembled as she fired the first shot in her life. The bullet passed by my uncle's face. At this moment, my uncle's face darkened instantly, and he quickened his climbing speed. The bullet flew out again and hit my uncle's leg firmly. At this moment, there was no more trembling on my mother's face, only determination and anger. She hated her brother to the extreme at this moment. The unfairness over the past 30-something years and the tragic ending of our family in the previous life had caused the anger in her heart to accumulate little by little, and my uncle's selfish behavior instantly ignited the anger in my mother's heart, which erupted at this moment. My mother smiled self-deprecatingly. She had also fantasized that for more than 10 years, she only wished that her parents would remember her a little bit of goodness. Even the simplest compliment would be a great surprise and expectation for me. Unfortunately, there had never been such a warm moment even once. In my mother's childhood, there were only endless abuse, blame, and criticism. They only cared about their precious son, my uncle. Unexpectedly, fate played a cruel trick. They loved their son so much but didn't expect to be stabbed to death by their own son in the end. A series of gunshots echoed throughout the mountain. My mother held the gun and fired another shot with extreme seriousness. The shot accurately hit my uncle's arm. Suddenly, blood turned into a pool of red under the wash of the rain and quickly disappeared in the violent storm. My uncle, who had lost his ability to move, fell heavily to the ground from the high wall. I curled my lips and watched all this. My mother finally took this step. She stepped out of the shadow of her childhood. The arrogant expression on my uncle's face instantly twisted into a look of pain. He had never thought that his cowardly sister would dare to shoot at him. He cried and howled for mercy and tried his best to find cover to protect himself. No, now my uncle has disappeared from our sight, but I'm sure they won't give up like this. We must eradicate them completely among the family members. I have learned martial arts for a while, so I'm the most suitable one to go out. Although my parents tried to stop me, for the safety of my parents, I must go. I lowered my head and put on the bulletproof vest. After loading the gun with bullets, I went out the door and ran out without looking back. Before going out, I turned to look at my parents. There were still 15 minutes left on their heads, and the countdown was still going. The crisis hadn't ended yet, and my parents were still in danger. They must still be up to something. Sure enough, before I walked far, I saw my uncle, who had fainted due to excessive blood loss, in the grass. Without hesitation, I shot him in the head. Suddenly, blood splattered and blurred my eyes. At that moment, my heart was surprisingly calm, because I have simulated this scene thousands of times in my mind. I wish I could carve him to pieces 1,000 times over. Perhaps it still wouldn't alleviate even 1,000th of the hatred in my heart. Something's not right. Where's my aunt? Why don't I see my aunt? I secretly felt that something was amiss. Suddenly, a nimble figure rushed out from the forest. It was my aunt. A flash of silver light passed before my eyes. It was a knife. Before I could react, I secretly chided myself for being so careless. It seemed that I was going to meet my end here. I hope my parents can survive. I smiled self-deprecatingly, ready to face death. Bang! A shot hit my aunt's heart. 11. I turned my head and looked in the direction where the gunshot came from. It was my mother. She held a shotgun in her hand, but her eyes were filled with tears. She opened her mouth tremblingly and said, "I'm sorry, my dear. Mom is late. It's all Mom's fault. I almost let my daughter die at their hands." Tears welled up and spilled out. She threw herself into my arms and burst into tears. It turned out that my mother was worried about me and secretly insisted on following me out. It was precisely because of my mother that I survived. My mother's hand holding the gun was still trembling. At this moment, my uncle and aunt were lying on top of each other, both having lost their lives. At my feet was a sharp knife. I knew what my uncle and aunt had in mind. Perhaps my uncle's pretending to faint in the grass just now was to lure me over, creating an opportunity for my aunt to kill me. If I'm not wrong, if my mother hadn't fired that shot, I would have been the first to die, and then my mother who was behind me. At this moment, I was surprised to find that the number on my mother's head was rising at an astonishing speed. Finally, it stopped at 58 years. My mother and I didn't say a word. We just held each other tightly. The rain flowed down my face, and I couldn't tell whether it was rain or tears. My father arrived shortly after. He hugged us tightly and murmured to himself, "We made it." Just like that, our family finally escaped the tragic ending of the previous life and embarked on a brand new journey of rebirth. 12. Time flies by like a white horse passing through a gap in the blink of an eye. My parents and I have spent the second year in the apocalypse shelter we built with our own hands. The world that has been constantly battered by high temperatures every day seems to have suddenly been drenched by a cool rain. The temperature is slowly dropping at a rate of 1 degree per day. My parents and I looked at each other, and the joy on our faces was hard to hide. This undoubtedly means that the disaster that swept the world is finally coming to an end, and humanity will open a new era. That is to say, the end of the world is finally coming to an end. Just then, a broadcast suddenly sounded in the air, coming from our wireless device. At 14:28 on May 28, 3024, due to the global high temperature, tens of thousands of our fellow countrymen unfortunately lost their lives in the disaster, and millions of families lost their homes where they had lived for generations. Facing this sudden and huge disaster, under the strong leadership of the country, the people of all ethnic groups across the country, including the entire military, stood united. The vast number of people did not stand still but bravely rose up to save themselves. All sectors of society at home and the international community actively provided assistance. Through tenacious efforts, we have finally developed cooling materials, increased the global greening area, and developed a vaccine to cure heatstroke. In many fields such as dealing with the global high temperature, we have achieved major phased victories. The country has also called on young people to join the post-disaster reconstruction activities. We will build an underground city to prevent such a disaster from happening again in the future. The families of those who sign up for the reconstruction can move into the underground city with priority. They swaggeringly enjoyed the supplies we had stockpiled. Yes, looking at the survivors gathered at the construction site like a sea of people, the long-lost loneliness in my heart was finally soothed. The hope for the future life began to burn brightly in my heart at this moment. The future of the world depends on us. Sure enough, relying on the advantage of our country's large population, the underground city was quickly built. For the future of this country, I invested all my remaining money in the construction of schools. Suddenly, I understood my dream and mission. Nowadays, the country urgently needs all kinds of talents to change the current situation, and cultivating talent starts with education. The iteration of talents primarily focuses on education. I began to work on the production and approval of the school building plans. It was a long process. During this period, I also looked around for excellent teaching staff, preparing for the future opening of the school. However, due to the small remaining population after the disaster, there was a shortage of teaching resources. In the end, I had to teach several subjects at the same time. The day before the school officially started construction, I went to the construction site in person to inspect it, carefully checking every detail and gradually bringing my dream of many years to life. Looking at the first school that was gradually rising up under my personal supervision, my heart was filled with immense pride and anticipation. It's so great, children, the future of the country depends on you. I stood on the podium and said with a smile, looking at the young faces below, although I'm gradually getting old, the country is gradually becoming stronger for me. That's enough. Story 2. As the end times approached, my mother-in-law sold off the supplies I had stockpiled. Despite my desperate attempts to stop her, my husband violently assaulted me when my son fell ill and I was left to care for him alone. I caught his disease, yet he refused to give me any medicine. Delirious with fever, they traded my body for food. As the apocalypse neared its end, to cover up their sins, they turned me into food. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 10 days before the apocalypse began. 1. The pain of a knife slicing through my neck had not yet faded. My husband Samuel, son Simon, and mother-in-law pounced on me, biting fiercely. I watched helplessly as they treated me like food, my eyes gradually dimming until I lost consciousness. As I drifted in and out of awareness, I heard Samuel's voice, "Daisy, hurry up and wash the dishes." Wasn't I killed by him? How could I still hear his venomous voice? I opened my eyes to see Samuel's impatient face. What was happening? The clock showed it was 10 days before the apocalypse. That day, I had a cold, and after making dinner, I fell asleep on the sofa, woken by Samuel to wash the dishes. The ribs and shrimp I had cooked were all eaten. Only a few picked over green leaves and some soup at the bottom of the dish remained. No one in the family cared whether I was sick or if there was enough food left for me. It turns out, I had been reborn, too. Before my rebirth, I worked at the city's infectious disease hospital. Initially, a few delirious patients were brought in who, after dying, revived as painless monsters. As the situation worsened, more and more patients arrived. They were like the zombies in movies, and I feared another mass incident. I quickly bought a large amount of canned and convenience foods online and asked my husband Samuel to bring our son home. I rushed home with a large supply of common medications. Just as I entered the door, my mother-in-law, looking displeased, said, "What did you buy all this for? You're wasting my son's money. Return it all immediately." I quickly explained, hoping the whole family would unite to survive the apocalypse. With a mocking look, she scoffed, "The end of the world. I think you're just lazy and don't want to cook." I didn't have time to explain further, and dismissively said, "Mom, I'm going out to buy some things. We'll talk when I get back." My husband blocked me as I tried to leave. "Mom is selling these for the family. You need to understand her. Honey, you need to trust me. Organize the supplies, and we'll talk when I get back." By the time I returned home with riot gear, the stockpiled supplies had disappeared. My mother-in-law sat on the sofa, legs crossed, smugly glancing at me while happily counting money. Unable to contain my despair and anger, I yelled, "Why did you sell my things?" Samuel replied discontentedly, "That's my mom." With tears in my eyes, I stared at him and pleaded, "That was our lifeline. Why didn't you listen to me?" "Why?" Samuel, embarrassed, didn't know how to respond. Casually, my mother-in-law said, "A man who lets his wife control him has no backbone. If the relatives knew, they'd laugh at you." Provoked by her words, Samuel kicked me down and began beating me until I passed out. 3. My mother-in-law and husband left me lying on the ground, and when I regained consciousness, my mother-in-law spat at me. "You disgrace. You've cost this family 10,000 yuan. Beaten all over, I was in too much pain to move, barely able to muster the strength to get up. When the phone rang, I struggled to take it out and answer the call. Through the phone, I could hear my son Simon crying, "Mom, come save me. There are monsters biting people all over the school." I turned sharply towards Samuel. "Didn't you go to pick up our child?" Samuel couldn't meet my eyes and guiltily turned away, then angrily retorted, "You knew it was dangerous. Why didn't you go get him, son?" "Don't be scared. Mommy is coming to get you," I said, wiping the blood from my forehead and donning riot gear. "My child is my life. I would crawl if I had to save him. You're taking the gear we just bought. What will we do if you go out?" Samuel grabbed my arm, trying to prevent me from taking the newly purchased riot gear. My mother-in-law urged, "Go save Simon quickly. If you don't bring my grandson back, you might as well die out there." Furious, I threw the riot gear on the floor and stormed out of the house. In my previous life, I was lucky enough to bring my son back home safely, but ended up saving an ungrateful soul. Samuel sat on the other end of the sofa. Seeing that I didn't react, he kicked me and commanded, "Finish your meal and wash the dishes." My mother-in-law was picking her teeth, her mouth greasy from food, leisurely watching TV. My son was playing games on his phone. I stood up and grabbed my bag. "I'm not feeling well. I'm going to the hospital." Samuel, dissatisfied, said, "Wash the dishes before you go." My mother-in-law also muttered, "Always rushing to the hospital for a small illness. What an overreaction." I slammed the door as I left, walking away quickly to avoid slapping them in sheer frustration. When I was younger, I was blinded by Samuel's good looks, and by the time I saw his true nature, I considered the child and stayed until now. If it wasn't yet time, I would have long since left these heartless people. I indulged in a delightful dinner and lay on the soft bed of a 5-star hotel. Online, I began looking for a house that caught my eye. Soon, I found a suitable place. The community had only 8 buildings, 2 apartments per floor, located in the suburbs with a low occupancy rate. I contacted an agent overnight and secured the top floor apartment, then looked for a home renovation company. Using my doctor's profession, I managed to borrow $1 million from various online lending platforms. I also mortgaged the house through the bank, and with some savings, I had $3 million in hand. I invested heavily, and the renovation company quickly reinforced the apartment I rented. A steel anti-break-in door was added behind the entrance, and all windows were fitted with one-way film. Steel bars were installed on the windows to ensure that it looked unchanged from the outside but was secured like a bank on the inside. Solar panels were installed on the roof, and energy storage batteries were placed inside. During the construction, I bought a large amount of supplies: compressed biscuits, self-heating dry food, canned meat, canned fruits, gasoline, alcohol, crossbows, knives, stun guns, and other self-defense weapons, generators, maritime satellite video transmission systems, solar panels, surveillance equipment, medications, vitamins, and dog food were indispensable. The next evening, I returned home. Samuel, unconcerned about my health, commanded, "You slammed the door and upset Mom yesterday. Apologize and then go cook." My mother-in-law, cracking sunflower seeds with a smug look, as if to say her son still sided with her. I approached my mother-in-law, suppressing my nausea, and smiled. "Mom, I've booked a tour for the whole family to relax a bit." My son cheered, and Samuel showed a look of approval. My mother-in-law, with a mocking tone and squinting eyes, said, "At least you know your place." Under the guise of calming my mother-in-law down, I took them out to eat, expecting me to cook again. They don't deserve it. After years of selfless devotion, all I've received in return is their increasing demands. They take my contributions for granted, treating my earnings as mere household income. Meanwhile, Samuel's earnings are seen as hard-earned money. But isn't everyone working hard these days? I've come to a sobering realization that much of this evil is ingrained in their genes. No one can change such wicked people. The only solution is to stay away. On the day of the trip, I excused myself due to a sudden matter at the hospital and did not join the group. They went on their joyful family outing. Meanwhile, I had a construction team install hidden surveillance throughout the house and set up a small-scale solar panel system with batteries on the rooftop to power the surveillance and maritime satellite video systems. This was to ensure that even if the apocalypse caused power outages, I could still monitor my home after everything was set up. I informed Samuel that I would be traveling for work and left with my beloved dog, Jojo. I threw away the keys. I was never coming back to that house. 3 days after their return from the trip, they hadn't called me once. The situation on the streets was becoming increasingly chaotic, with frequent assaults. The police were shooting crazed attackers on sight, which temporarily brought the situation under control, but I knew it wasn't that simple. Finally, when the moment of apocalypse arrived again, more than half of humanity, regardless of what job they were doing, lost consciousness. Simultaneously, people collapsed suddenly next to others, causing widespread panic. Planes crashed to the ground, cars spun out of control, some running over unconscious bodies, others bursting into flames. People screamed and cried in despair as those who were still conscious tried to help the fallen. When people saw zombies, bodies twisted beyond recognition, emerging from wrecked cars, and when a flattened zombie suddenly bit into someone nearby, everyone realized something was terribly wrong and began screaming and running in all directions. The zombies, sensitive to noise, chased after the panicked crowds, knocking them down and tearing into their flesh. Standing on the rooftop, I watched all this unfold with calm detachment. It seemed like humanity was being punished. The virus erupted collectively at that moment. The apocalypse had begun. In my pot, a spicy broth bubbled away. I picked up a slice of meat, blanched it for 7 seconds, and ate it immediately, savoring the tender bite infused with the rich aroma of chili. Jojo was happily gnawing on a big bone. Just as I was enjoying my meal, Samuel called via video. "Honey, where are you? Is the hospital safe? The sun and I miss you. Come back soon." An apocalypse with streets full of crashed cars and flesh-eating zombies, and he wants me to come back as if my life means nothing. I sipped my red wine leisurely and turned the camera to show the food on my table: crab, Australian lobster, abalone, all exquisite ingredients. Lazily, I replied, "I've eaten too much, too lazy to move." Pushing Samuel aside, my mother-in-law's voice screeched, "Bring all that food back for us to eat, Daisy. My mom is old and easily agitated, and the boy is hungry too. Please come back and cook for us." Every time my mother-in-law threw a tantrum, Samuel would play the soft-spoken one. For years, one would play the tough part, the other the soft, always manipulating me. I made so much money for the family, yet they never had a good Word for me now, spending money on myself, enjoying good food and drinks, feels absolutely amazing indeed. Money brings happiness when spent in the right places, spent on heartless people. It only brings endless pain. I laughed and said, "You have a mom, let her cook for you." Samuel, in disbelief, asked, "You won't take care of me, not even your own son?" Thinking he could manipulate me with our son, I retorted, "Why doesn't his dad cook? Is he dead?" Samuel was so angry he couldn't speak. Our son, drooling at the sight of the ingredients, shouted, "All of this is mine. If you don't let me eat, when you die, I'll feed you to the stray dogs." This is the son I painstakingly raised, enrolling him in various interest and tutoring classes. Money is better spent on myself, on beauty treatments, and having afternoon tea with friends. Tired of this family's ugliness, I hung up the phone and enjoyed my time. Soon, the power went out, and these things couldn't be preserved. There was a knock at the door. I didn't dare respond, holding Jojo tightly, keeping him quiet. In this apocalyptic world, people are unpredictable, capable of anything to survive. The person outside, not hearing a response for a long time, threatened in a menacing voice, "Open up, I know there's someone inside, don't make me break the door." Fearing the door would be damaged, I opened a small crack. The man was big and burly, with a skull tattoo on his arm, clearly not a good sign. Without waiting for me to ask, he pushed the door open and strutted in. His eyes greedily scanned over the food on the table and the pile of supplies. He sat on the sofa, eyeing me with a sinister smile. "You're a bit old, but seeing all you've prepared, Stephen, will protect you from now on." He patted his thigh. "Come over here, pour me a drink." Clearly, he planned to take over my supplies and keep me for entertainment. Stephen's name was well known in the late post-apocalyptic world. He led a group of reckless thugs in the suburbs, robbing supplies everywhere. Men were killed, women taken for pleasure. After having their fill, women were used as bait. I never imagined I'd encounter such a scumbag so early in the apocalypse. I obediently walked over. Stephen, picking up chopsticks and putting abalone into the pot, looked smug. Unfortunately for him, he celebrated his victory too soon. I pulled out an electric shock stick and jabbed him with it. Stephen convulsed all over, sliding off the sofa. After shocking him for a full minute, his skin smelling burnt, I finally stopped. Stephen's body twitched occasionally, disgusting saliva dripping from his mouth. I tied him up tightly and threw him aside. When Stephen woke up, he saw Jojo baring his teeth, got scared, and hit his head on the wall. The pain unleashed his ferocity, and he glared at me dangerously. I squatted in front of him, tapping his cheek with a knife. Stephen, underestimating a woman from a peaceful society, disdainfully asked, "Dare to kill? If not, just let me go." With a sneer, I put on my protective gear and dragged him toward the balcony. Roars and the clanging of chains echoed from the balcony. A zombie clawed at the balcony door, baring its teeth. Stephen was terrified, unable to believe his eyes. "I caught this one from downstairs especially for you. Enjoy your time together." Stephen finally realized that he was not dealing with a weak woman, but a living demon. He pleaded continuously for me to let him go, promising not to trouble me afterward. The apocalypse had just begun, and people were not yet desperate, maintaining a basic respect for the law. However, I had seen how people would do anything to survive during the apocalypse. The apocalypse has no need for saints. I opened the door and pushed Stephen inside. When Samuel contacted me, I was enjoying some beef jerky and watching a show with Jojo in my arms. As soon as the video connected, Samuel's mother-in-law and his son crowded in front of the camera, looking distressed. I casually fed the beef jerky to Jojo. The mother-in-law's eyes narrowed in pain as she scolded, "Are you even human? Your husband and son are starving, and you feed the dog. Bring back some food immediately." Her son looked pitifully and said, "Mom, I'm hungry too. I really want some food." Samuel also urged, "My son is starving. My wife, we need you." I sighed, my face showing helplessness. "If it weren't for your grandma always stopping me from buying provisions, you wouldn't be hungry now." Whenever I tried to buy instant noodles or heating meals, the mother-in-law would scold me for feeding the family junk food, claiming I was harming her son and insisting that I cook instead, as if the hands that perform surgeries and save lives could cook meals that were somehow more nutritious. Buying too many groceries also got me scolded for being wasteful. Buying too much rice was a waste of space. She preferred buying as needed. Now, it seems, all the snacks for the son are gone. Her son glared fiercely at the mother-in-law and snapped, "It's all your fault, you old hag. You never let Mom buy anything. You always make her work and then scold her, and now she won't come back." See, the middle school son knows everything. It's just that previously, it didn't concern him, and he didn't care about my suffering. The grandmother, usually so doting and sweet, was shocked when her grandson yelled at her and, without thinking, slapped Simon across the face. Simon, not one to back down, kicked her down. "Mom, you can come home safely. Don't Worry about her, I'll protect you. I laughed. The apocalypse was only a week old, and electricity hadn't even gone out yet, but their true colors were already showing. I picked up Jojo, stroking its soft fur, and offered it more beef jerky. There's too much to carry back, but you're welcome to come and find me. Samuel and his son fell silent. The brave were already out on the streets killing zombies, searching for food, but they dared not. In a previous life, they dared to kill me, but they didn't have the courage to face the zombies outside. Samuel hesitated for a long time before muttering, "It's too dangerous outside. I'm afraid something might happen to my son. Bring the food back and we can wait for rescue together." Rescue? That won't come. Electricity is about to go out too. They're afraid of dying, but not of me facing dangers on the road back. I reminded them before leaving, set the intercom to channel 8 to reach me. Before leaving the house, I prepared the walkie-talkies and solar panels. They are my dearest family. Even if the power goes out, we cannot lose contact. 12. Half a month after the apocalypse, the city had long been without power, thanks to solar energy. I still watch TV shows and play with my dog every day. No work, no chores, and with plenty of food and water. I am almost too happy. In my spare time, I check on Samuel through the security cameras to relieve the boredom. Samuel, unable to bear the hunger, buys food at exorbitant prices, $500 for a bun, $1,000 for a bowl of rice. As time goes on, the price of food keeps rising. Samuel traded all of my gold and silver jewelry for just a packet of instant noodles. My son, driven by hunger, his eyes turning blue, reaches out and says, "Give it to me." Samuel refuses, saying, "I'm the breadwinner. I need the strength to find food for you." Samuel devours the noodles so quickly he doesn't even bother with the seasoning packet. "Give it to me. I'm starving." My son, used to having his way, lunges to snatch it. He doesn't care about the future. He can't stand others being full while he's hungry. Samuel doesn't let go, and during the struggle, bits of noodles spill from the package. My mother-in-law quickly picks up the crumbs from the floor and stuffs them into her mouth. My son, not as strong as Samuel, bites him in frustration. Samuel, bleeding from the bite, lets go in pain. My son grabs the noodles and takes a bite, only to be knocked down by a punch from Samuel. In my past life, they traded me for food and never resented my mother-in law for selling my hoarded supplies. Now, over a packet of instant noodles, the bond of fatherly love and filial piety completely collapses. My son, crying, contacts me. "Mom, he's stealing my food and he hit me. Come and take me away." When I discipline him, it's as if I've committed a heinous crime. He gets annoyed and resents me. Samuel treats him like a pet, playing with him and letting him snack as much as he likes when in a good mood, which makes him prefer his father getting hit. Now he remembers to turn to his mother. "Son, listen." I pour myself a Coke. The fizzing of the Coke passes through the walkie-talkie. Jojo is drinking milk and eating beef. I have everything here. My voice is full of allure. "You're not allowed to drink Coke or feed Jojo. It's all mine." My son yells jealously. My greedy and foolish son doesn't even know my address yet, and he's already guarding his food. 13. Jojo rests his head on my lap, his tail wagging happily. Evil, once it begins, is hard to stop. Samuel slaps my son down, cursing, "Idiot, you don't even know your mother's address and you've upset her so much she ignores you. What's the use of raising such a useless person? Jojo is better. Jojo could at least be killed for meat. Keep trying to contact her. If your mother ignores you, I'll kill you." My son lies on the ground, looking up at him with hatred. My mother-in-law watches him, her gaze flickering with unclear implications. I turn off the walkie-talkie. I've stopped contacting them. Still, the apocalypse hasn't put enough pressure on them. 3 months later, resources became increasingly scarce. Murder for a morsel of food became the norm, revealing the depth of human malevolence. The bold ventured into supermarkets, granaries, and restaurants, places abundant with food. Those afraid to face the zombies resorted to breaking into homes in search of sustenance. Fortunately, there were few people in my neighborhood, and I only encountered intruders twice. Each time, I used Steven and another zombie to guard the living room. Their howling frightened away the intruders. Steven kept his promise to protect me. Samuel's family barely survived by breaking into homes. His mother-in-law, once plump at 160 pounds and standing 5 feet tall, had withered to a skeleton. Samuel and his son also grew extremely thin, their cheeks hollowed, fragile as if a gust of wind could carry them away. If I hadn't maintained my daily routine of physical exercise and yoga, I would have gained weight. One night, the mother-in-law quietly pulled Samuel aside in the kitchen. "Son, we haven't found anything for 3 days. I'm so hungry." Samuel, irritable, replied, "What can I do? Damn Daisy won't speak up. Maybe she's dead out there." Glancing towards the bedroom, the mother-in-law whispered devilishly, "We should kill Simon. That's the only way we'll survive. He offended the daughter-in-law, and that's why she ignores us. If he's gone, she'll calm down, then we can find her and live comfortably. Samuel hesitated, torn because Simon was his own son. Encouraging further, she said, "Don't you want to eat meat?" Overhearing their conversation, the starving son followed them into the kitchen, thinking they were secretly eating. Unable to contain himself any longer, he kicked open the kitchen door, charging in like a mad bull, and knocked his grandmother to the ground, grabbing a kitchen knife. He repeatedly stabbed her. Witnessing his son's frenzied actions, Samuel stepped back. In fear, holding the bloody knife, the son's eyes, red with rage, turned to Samuel and he said, "Eat every day. Samuel calls me, wife, my mother is dead, and no one will bully you anymore. Where are you? I miss you." See, he always knew I was being mistreated, enduring it for the sake of his son, but since he never felt the pain himself, he remained oblivious. Now his affection is nothing but a pretense for survival. Who doesn't know how to act? I picked up the radio. "Husband, I have a lot of food here, come to me." Samuel fell silent. Seeking me out was risky and could mean death. Not seeking me out could mean starvation. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. I suggested, "Why don't you bring some neighbors along? I have plenty of supplies." Samuel's eyes lit up. As long as he didn't reveal the location, the neighbors would protect them for the sake of food. "Wife, you're amazing," he exclaimed, then cautioned, "People are unpredictable. Hide the food and just leave a little for the neighbors." I agreed and gave him the address. "I'm at Lishui, Block 3, Unit 1, Apartment 401. Samuel rallied the neighbors, describing a paradise-like place with ample food, few zombies, and a beautiful environment. I thought only capitalists were skilled at making empty promises, but it turns out he is too. The group, nearly starved to death, fawned over Samuel for a chance to reach this so-called dreamland. Terrified of being left behind, Samuel, full of himself, demanded food as a ticket for those wanting to join. Those who couldn't provide food had to offer women instead. After lording over everyone for 2 days, he gathered over 50 people and set off in more than 10 vehicles. I don't care how many of them survived the journey to Lishui home. In my past life, when I rescued my son, he was trembling all over, drenched in cold sweat. He developed a high fever after we got home. My mother-in-law and Samuel, fearing Simon might have contracted the zombie virus, refused to take care of him. They wanted to throw him outside to fend for himself, insisting. They locked us in the master bedroom, leaving me to care for my son alone. I medicated him and wiped his body with wet towels. After 2 days and nights, his fever subsided, but I became infected, burning with fever and weak. I asked my son for fever-reducing medicine, seeing only 3 bottles of ibuprofen left. He took the medicine and left the room. Samuel asked if I had taken the medicine. Indifferently, my son asked, "What will we do if we get sick later?" Samuel fell silent. My mother-in-law agreed. "Simon really thinks ahead. You, being an adult, have stronger immunity." The family happily went off to eat, ignoring me entirely, not even helping to reduce my fever physically. After several severe feverish convulsions, my brain was damaged, leaving me mentally impaired, seeing me as useless and to save on food. They starved me to the brink of death. Just before I died, they realized there was no food left. My mother-in-law suggested, "Since she's dying anyway, why not exchange her body for food?" Samuel struggled with the idea. He still cared about appearances and didn't want to be seen as a monster again. My mother-in-law persuaded, "Why hesitate over a fool? When this apocalypse is over, I'll find you a young and beautiful bride." Samuel happily agreed. My son wanted to refuse, but faced with the choice my mother-in-law posed, eating or keeping his foolish mother, he silently returned to his room. From then on, male neighbors continuously visited my room. Initially, they left a pack of instant noodles. Later, it was just a cookie until a vaccine was successfully developed, power was restored, and the apocalypse neared its end. They turned me into food, completely concealing their crime. After being reborn, I remembered everything from my time as an imbecile. Both Samuel's family and those male neighbors deserved to die. 5 battered, blood-stained cars smashed through the fire access gates and entered the community. Dozens of zombies followed. The cars circled back and forth, knocking down and crushing the zombies. Protected by the neighbors, Samuel and his son stepped out of the car. He looked around with a smug smile and stomped his foot forcefully. "Neighbors, how do you like this place?" The neighbors all flattered him. The original residents of the community secretly peeked through their curtains at the intruders, unconcerned about the community's original residents. Samuel arrogantly waved his hand and loudly said, "Come on, let's go have a meal." The crowd, red-eyed from hunger, followed him en masse. Samuel stood at the door of Unit 401, under the expectant gaze of his neighbors. Samuel knocked forcefully on the door. "Open up." The door remained shut. His son shouted, "Mom, it's me. Open the door quickly." Still, there was no response from inside. The neighbors looked at Samuel, their eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. Half the people on the road had died for the sake of food. If Samuel dared to deceive them, they would Make him wish he was dead. Samuel banged on the door again, but it wouldn't budge. A neighbor grabbed Samuel by the collar, demanding harshly, "Did you lie to us just to get our protection?" His wife had been bitten by a zombie on the way here. He couldn't stand being tricked. Terror-stricken, Samuel picked up the walkie-talkie and called, "Honey, our son and I are here. Please open the door." I chuckled and turned off the walkie-talkie. Watching through the surveillance system, repeated calls led to despair. The neighbor punched Samuel, knocking him down. Just as the other neighbors were about to swarm him, Samuel yelled, "Wait, maybe something happened to my wife. Let's break the door down." The neighbor threatened menacingly, "If there's no food inside, you're dead." The neighbors pushed Samuel and his son aside and began to break down the door. Upon breaking in, they found a copper hot pot and a speaker on the dining table, with a large bucket of charcoal, bottled water, and spicy hot pot base on the floor. People rushed into the room, searching everywhere. They didn't find me, but in the kitchen, they discovered a still-functioning freezer filled neatly with 10 bags of lamb rolls. "There's food." The neighbors excitedly set up the pot, boiled the water, added the hot pot base, and began to cook. Your wife prepared well, even left a speaker to play music. They didn't know that without the speaker, which I used to remotely play zombie growls, the food would have been long gone. Samuel, somewhat smugly, stepped forward, trying to push through the neighbors to eat first. A neighbor forcefully pushed him back, saying discontentedly, "Stop pushing. Go away." Samuel, annoyed, retorted, "You dare push me. This is my house's stuff." The neighbor sneered, "This is the reward for protecting you here. Go find your wife if you want to eat." The neighbors formed a circle, not waiting for the meat to cook thoroughly before grabbing and eating it. His son, unable to squeeze in, could only stretch his arm in, grabbing meat and quickly stuffing it into his mouth. Not minding the heat, Samuel dropped his temporary leader's facade and joined the fray for meat. The scent of the spicy hot pot wafted out of the windows and doors. In the neighborhood, Sebastian caught the aroma and stepped out of his home. In his past life, Sebastian of Lishuin neighborhood was notorious, a martial arts school graduate. Relying on his skills, he gathered a gang, robbing and killing everywhere, committing all sorts of evil. With over 20 followers, wielding machetes, Sebastian headed straight for apartment 401. Samuel and others were enjoying their meal, but 10 bags of lamb were not enough. Just as everyone was calculating how to eat more, Sebastian and his men stood at the doorway. Sebastian raised his knife towards the neighbors. "Stop eating. Get out now." To the neighbors, the slices of meat were as precious as life itself. Asking them to give it up was like asking for their lives. The neighbors had grown bolder after their journey, having dared to kill zombies. They could certainly confront a man. "Get out." Sebastian, insulted, swung his knife and killed the one who insulted him. The other neighbors grabbed whatever they could and charged forward. A bloody battle ensued. The hot pot was boiling furiously. Soon, the neighbors and the son were lying in pools of blood. Sebastian's men dragged Samuel out of the bathroom where he was hiding, with a face scarred from burns. Sebastian swung his knife with a grim look. Samuel's pants were wet as he screamed, "Don't kill me. My wife has a stash of food. My wife is beautiful. She's a doctor. She can treat your wounds." The machete paused above his head. Treating severe burns was difficult even in normal times, let alone in a post-apocalyptic world lacking medical supplies. Sebastian coldly asked, "Where is your wife? Her walkie-talkie might be out of battery." "I can't reach her now, but I'll take you to her once I do." Samuel was groveling like a whipped dog, almost wagging his tail. "If you lie to me, I'll chop you up and feed you to the zombies." They decided to stay at a place powered by solar energy. Samuel kept trying to contact me non-stop. "Wife, if you hear me, respond quickly." I replied lazily after a while, "I'm here. Wife, I've arrived but I can't see you. Where are you?" I scoffed. "So you can bring people to rob me if I tell you the location." Samuel blatantly lied. "It's just me and our son. We ditched the others." "Samuel, your pathetic groveling disgusts me. Your son is dead. Why don't you go join him?" Sebastian and Samuel found a hidden camera as they searched around. Sebastian grabbed the walkie-talkie, threatening, "Give me your address now, or I'll chop him up." I calmly replied, "Okay." Sebastian cut off one of Samuel's fingers. "Will you talk now?" "Keep going." Sebastian cut again. After several cuts, Samuel was sobbing uncontrollably, realizing he couldn't threaten me. Sebastian prepared to kill Samuel to vent his frustration. Samuel pleaded, "Big brother, let me go. I can make hot pot for you." Sebastian slapped him across the face. "You've eaten all the meat. There's none left." Samuel looked at the ground. Sebastian understood. He didn't want to dirty his hands. He went to play with his phone, leaving the scene to Samuel. Samuel prepared everything. Sebastian and his men started eating. Samuel served them without getting a bite himself. Soon, Sebastian clutched his stomach in pain, cursing at Samuel. "Bastard, you dared To poison me, I'll chop you up. Samuel grabbed the walkie-talkie and ran. All of Sebastian's men were poisoned, collapsed on the ground, unable to chase after him. I thought Samuel would die outside, but a day later, I heard his voice calling again. He pleaded and tried to gain my sympathy. 3 days later, Samuel weakly said, "Wife, I'm dying. I want to see you one last time." I agreed and gave out my real address. When Samuel showed up at the door, he was bloodied and in a sorry state. Seeing that he was unarmed, I cautiously opened the door. Once inside, Samuel grabbed my neck, hissing venomously, "You bitch, die." I jabbed him in the ribs with a stun gun. Instantly, he convulsed, and as he fell, he dragged me down. He thought we were both electrocuted, but men usually recover faster. Thinking he could get up before me, he glared at me menacingly. "I'll kill you and feed you to the dogs." Jojo, my dog, charged and bit him. Samuel cursed, "Damn dog, get lost." As he raged, I stood up easily. "Jojo, come here." Jojo stood by my side, menacingly eyeing Samuel. I didn't wait for his pleas, jabbing him again with the stun gun. "I'm wearing insulating shoes, you fool." Samuel pleaded, "Wife, I was wrong. Let me stay. I'll treat you well. Don't worry. This stuff is all yours." I'm taking Jojo and leaving. I picked up the rope from the ground and gripped it in my hand. Samuel had a bad feeling and followed the rope with his eyes to see the other end tied to the balcony door handle. You managed to eliminate Sebastian, and now it's time to take care of Steven, who is his equal. Good luck. I pulled hard, and the balcony door swung open. Steven and another zombie, attracted by the scent of blood on Samuel, lunged towards him. "Goodbye, no, never see you again, Jojo," and I ran out of the room and closed the door behind us. From inside the room, Samuel's curses and screams could be heard. At that moment, the lights in the corridor turned on, indicating that the power was restored. This signaled that the vaccine had been successfully developed and the military was beginning to reclaim the city. The apocalypse was over. Sunlight swept across the land, clearing away the gloom of several months. Humanity, resilient and tough, quickly restored order and resumed work and production. I went back to being a doctor, choosing not to marry again. I focused on saving lives, independent and beautiful.